Okay, so I think we are live here. If anyone can see this and it looks good, let me know in the comments. But as you will have seen from where I was sharing this and from the title and the thumbnail and all the things, this is not going to be our usual spell language conlanging stream because I realized that after finishing up with the relay, I have a ton of stuff resulting from that I need to now work into the language. And given that that's all still private and secretive and all of that stuff, I wasn't ready to do that yet. So instead, we are going to try and learn my. I mean, those symbols are still pronounced ABCs, right?
No.
Like that's yeah. We're gonna learn my IPA ABCs, I guess. And we have the wonderful RossBayGeo here to help me out. Hello everybody. So we have Jake, we have Avilia, we have Greg, we have Nemo. Hello, hello, hello. And Miles, hello. So as a bit of a quick setup before I let Ross do his intro to what the game plan is for today, I have for my kindergarten lesson my juice boxes, my bluey shirts, and some reward mini M&Ms. So I'm ready for it. And then as a very bad preschooler, I'm also drinking coffee, but we're gonna pretend I'm not, or that, pretend it's in a sippy cup. Hello, Griffin. Hello, Gregatron. Hello, everybody. Yes. Yes, it is a little bit more higher pressure, Jake. But okay. And I guess the other quick intro is just, as everyone knows, I don't use IPA. I'm really bad at remembering them and learning them and doing all the things. So yes. Ross, do you want to take it away?
I would love to. Thank you, Madeline. All right. Oh, I can see the little bubble around my glob there moving, so I know that it works this time.
Yeah.
All right. Hello, everyone. Yes, it is a bit more high intensity IPA, but I do think a lot of the ways that people maybe think about how the IPA works when they start getting into conlanging is a little bit different than the understanding of people who are in language learning or linguistics in academic setting and how that's interpreted. Sometimes people just think it's a thing that you have to do. And it's just a step that has to be endured. But the crispness of my audio. Wow, my broken headphones are the best audio equipment. We're just going to kind of get right into it, and I'm going to start presenting. Let's do this. Share screen.
Yeah, switch to this view.
Sharing screen is easiest with 2 monitors. Thank you, share screening tips. Okay. Select window to share screen. Allow. Wonderful. Okay. And I can see what I'm doing.
Wait. Here we go.
Brilliant. Okay.
Does that look like
that looks
good?
Exactly how it should look.
Perfect.
All have Helvetica and everything. So we're going to start with just discussing what we're talking about when we're getting into the IPA. So the IPA, the International Phonetic Alphabet, was created by an organization in the late 19th century who wanted a way to represent sounds from different languages to different linguists. And people had already been doing this for a while. There had been linguists who wanted to render ancient Egyptian into like German. So they made up kind of a proto-IPA for that. There was also a wave of English speakers in the 19th century who wanted to make phonetic versions of English so that people understood how to say that. People understood how to say different things. Some of them include like the Romic alphabet and things like that. So usually it's like Paul Passy, who is the first guy to develop the International Phonetic Alphabet. Offhand, I think it was like in the 1880s, 1890s. He was basing his IPA off of some of these English attempts to make a phonetic alphabet for English. And what do I mean by phonetic? So When we're talking about phonetics, we're just talking about the sounds that are made acoustically. It's like how
Mhm.
we make them with the different parts of our mouth. And the biggest distinction, and there's going to be, and it's always more complicated, and people who already know these things, I understand that there are more complicated things. We're just kind of building things up.
Yeah. This is
The,
preschool, not
yeah.
elementary school or college.
Um, and the largest distinction that we have that I think is most relevant is between consonants and vowels. So if we say the word cat, you would be able to identify which ones are consonants and which ones are vowels?
Yes, I can
Okay.
do that. I know my vowels and my consonants.
Which one's your consonants?
C and T.
All right. And which
Do I
one's the
get an
vowel?
M&M?
You can have an
A.
M&M now.
I get an M&M.
And which one's the vowel?
A.
A. Brilliant. And
Mhm.
why? What's different between those sounds between the C and the T and the A?
Obstructed airflow?
Brilliant. So
Mm.
the main difference between consonants and vowels is the obstruction of airflow through, the oral cavity, through your mouth.
Mhm.
Um,
The oral cavity, I like it.
Makes it sound like you have to brush more.
Oh, yeah.
So the main difference between a consonant and a vowel is the open flow of air.
Mhm.
Vowels and some consonants, like semivowels, things like liquids, which would be
Mhm.
L sounds, there's a free flow of air through the mouth.
Mhm.
Consonants, there is some point of obstruction. The obstruction could be minor, or it could be major obstruction. And we'll get into that in a bit when we go through the chart. Oh, okay.
Okay.
The next distinction is voicing.
Hmm.
If you would put your hand over your Adam's apple, over your throat, uh, yeah, and say the word sip.
Sip.
Great. And now say the word zip.
Zip.
Did you notice a difference between sip and zip?
It was lower on zip?
Oh, let's try it again. And keep your hand there the whole time. I'm kind of grabbing my own throat,
Okay.
not just having it placed
Okay.
daintily on there.
Oh, well, I mean, it's just this be dated. No, okay. I will half choke myself. We're good. Here we go. Totally
Yeah,
stream appropriate.
yeah. Happy Pride Month, LMAO. Yeah, happy Pride Month, everyone.
Yes.
So sip,
Sip.
zip.
Zip.
Yeah,
The vibration?
the vibration.
The
So
vibration. Okay.
when your vocal cords, when air is passing through your vocal cords
Mhm.
without your unhindered, right? Without your vocal cords vibrating like that, it is a voiceless sound.
Okay.
When it passes through and is vibrating, it is, hey, it's the easiest way to do it. I do it. If you're, and if your vocal cords are vibrating, you have a voiced sound.
Okay.
And vowels will also cause your vocal cords to vibrate. So
Okay.
broadly, as far as we're concerned today, we can break consonants into voiceless and voiced. And vowels, while they can be unvoiced, and some languages do incorporate unvoiced vowels,
Wait. Hold on.
for English speakers, there isn't a distinction.
Mhm.
And for many languages, there is not a distinction between voiced and unvoiced vowels. This is not going advanced. I'm just mentioning it's a thing and then moving on.
Okay, good. I was gonna say because I'm like, oh my.
And then the final distinction that is important is the difference between an oral sound and a nasal sound.
Okay.
And, we can have a difference between cat and can. Cat, can. What's a good way to? Cat,
In the
can.
vowel sound or in the?
If you put your fingers, your thumb and your index finger on either side of your nose.
Here?
Yes, just like that.
Okay.
Now say cat. Don't put pressure. Just have it there.
Oh, okay.
Cat, can.
Can. Cat. What? My nose vibrated a little bit.
Excellent. So the difference between an oral sound and a nasal sound is that air is moving through your nasal pathway.
Oh, okay. That's new to me. Very new. Okay.
So when we have sounds like we have M and N, and in English at the end of words, particularly certain kinds of verbs or noun verbs, we have the ng sound, like running. Those are all nasal sounds.
Okay.
And people may be aware that languages like French, in words like for good, bon, there's also nasalized vowels.
Okay.
So these three things, whether a sound is a consonant or a vowel, and then for whether it's engaging the vocal cords, whether it's voiceless or voiced, and then finally, whether it is oral or nasal.
Okay.
Yeah. And part of this is going to be, I think people are, once you know these things, you can intuit based on, or figure out based on what's vibrating, what kind of sound you're making.
Right.
Yeah. I'm just waiting for the comments.
Oh my gosh.
With that, we're just going to move right in to Madeline learns her, I guess that would be what? Says. Vibration-based conlanging. A fun thing
I like it.
with vibes, that term vibes emerged in the New Age movement, and it refers to like people's auras. So kind of the pseudosemitic idea that people have like auras vibrating off of them, and so the short form vibes came from things like good vibrations.
Perfect.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of the Gen Z kids today think that they've invented all this lingo and they're just ripping off the 60s. All right. So, Madeline, you're going to learn your international phonetic alphabet. And
maybe.
No, I'm pretty sure. We need positive self-talk.
Okay. Positive self-talk.
Positive self-talk. And we are going to start by working through what's known as the place of articulation. So I'm going to grab a diagram. This is a bit of a no, I'm not. Dime a dozen diagram here.
Oh boy. Okay.
Yeah. It decided to become as big as possible.
Yeah. I mean, why, I'm not going to go there. Never mind. Carry forth.
Carry forth. Onwards and downwards.
Yeah.
So, your place of articulation is where the sound is being produced in your mouth, more or less. We're going to say oral cavity. There's also the nasal cavity, which, is where where the nasalization comes from. Where did there we go. And when we're talking about places of articulation, we normally have an active articulator and a passive articulator.
Okay.
When you say the word cat,
Mhm.
just the first sound, the k sound.
Yeah.
What can you describe what's happening in your mouth?
The back of my tongue is tapping up on the roof of my mouth a little bit near the back. And my tongue is slightly curved, maybe? Although that could be a me thing. I don't know.
Yes, the important thing there is that the back of your tongue, which is the active articulator here,
Mhm.
is touching the passive articulator, which is the
Mm.
velum, that back part of
Okay.
your mouth, which is sometimes called the soft palate.
Okay.
And so the place of articulation is where your articulators are touching that causes the obstruction to make the sound.
Okay.
And the handy dandy IPA chart, I mean, we can keep this around, but we're going to move up here. That we are going to be making is going to be starting from the front of the mouth
Okay.
and going to the back,
Yeah.
from left to right. Because as I said, the people who invented this were working in a European context where things are written from left to right. So
Mhm.
they just thought this is how they were going to do it. And we have the advantage of people who use orthographies or like writing systems based on the Latin script,
Mm.
because like all of these are based off of either Latin characters or Greek
Mhm.
characters or something related, um,
Right.
or adding something funny onto it. So what do you think the first place of articulation is going to be if we're starting at the beginning of the mouth?
The lips?
The lips? Yes, excellent. So the first one is bilabial, bilabial.
Bilabial.
And that is, as you mentioned, both lips.
Mhm.
So your articulator is going to be your bottom lip, and the passive articulator is going to be the upper lip. And the sounds that we can make there are things like p,
Mhm.
b, and m.
Mhm. Mm.
Right. So we can
Mhm.
just drop. Oh no, InDesign, don't open. Okay. So we can drop p in there because uh, at the front we're thinking about the upper and the lower lip. Do you think there are any other sounds that belong in the bilabial spot that you can think of off the top of your head?
Other than the ones that we've said?
Yeah, or any that you can just kind of
Uh,
think of.
uh, I mean, yeah, definitely. No M&M for me.
No, I think you can have an MM. Would fa or va fit in that spot?
No, because that's with the teeth, right?
That is with the teeth, and that is where
Yeah.
we are moving on to next.
Oh, fa. I feel like I need to go through all my alphabets, like yeah.
Yeah, we will. So the next ones are labiodentals, and as you recognized, it is with the lower lip and the upper teeth. So
Mm-hmm.
fa and va.
Blowing raspberries and Praia. Wait, how do you pronounce it? Praia or Praha? Piraha?
Uh, Piraha
Piriha.
would probably be
Piraha?
Piraha, probably. Yeah.
Piraha? Okay.
Um, Onwards and backwards.
Hmm.
If we started with bilabial, two lips, then we've got labiodental, the lip and the teeth, the
Mm.
bottom teeth. What do you think the next one's going to be?
Teeth and tongue?
Almost. We're gonna
Teeth and
just
teeth?
teeth and teeth. Yes,
Arr.
teeth and teeth. You can have your M&M. These are the dental
Ooh.
sounds.
Okay.
Um, but you were right in that it is the tip of the tongue with the upper teeth.
Mm-hmm.
So we have the tip of the tongue, our upper teeth. But the reason why we're going to say teeth and teeth is
Mm.
because there are a handful of different ways to make dental sounds.
Okay.
Um, so if we can start this section with a rare sound cross-linguistically from the information we have from contemporary and from recent languages. But to us, they're things that we use all the time. They're one of the most, frequently used sounds, even if they're not in many words. And that would be
Okay.
the sound at the beginning of the and through.
Okay. That like sound.
Yes. And when you
Okay.
say the or through,
Through the.
stop yourself right as you're saying the and see where your tongue is.
Yeah, it's like right at the bottom back of my teeth, and then like slightly touching the top a little bit too.
Mhm.
But
So there are also people when they say it where their tongue will actually be between their two front teeth, their teeth. So the tongue will be touching the bottom but sticking out in front of the teeth a little bit. The and
I feel like mine
that
does both a little bit.
yeah, and it changes. I mean, it depends on what vowel you're moving to next in the environment that it's in. But these are sometimes known as interdental.
Okay.
But we are just going to refer to them as dental. But as you said, you can make a dental sound just by touching the back of your teeth. So you don't need to go between your teeth, but anything where the tip of your tongue, or I guess the blade of your tongue, you could, I suppose, when the tip of your tongue or the blade of your tongue is touching your upper teeth. Notably, we do not have a place of articulation where the tongue is touching the bottom teeth.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah. Spanish tea spoilers. Yes, that is a Spanish tea spoiler. So
Okay.
in English, we're going to get to where we say the T in English in a sec. But in Spanish, their T is actually pronounced on their teeth. Ta ta ta. Rather than where we would do it.
I learned Spanish, but I don't know if I ever knew to pronounce it like that. Okay.
And so this is where we're getting in some of those familiar characters. So this character here, this tall O with a line through it, is the character for the sound in through, that first sound in through. And we would call that an unvoiced dental.
Okay.
Yeah. And then the next one we have is our familiar T and D sounds. So let's do that a little bit. So dog is a good one. Dog.
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 R-T. N. N.
Yes, N as well.
Okay.
And so all of those are alveolar sounds, and that is when the tongue tip or blade is touching what's known as the alveolar ridge, which is the fleshy bit above your teeth. It's kind of a harder fleshy bit. It kind of rises up from your teeth into your mouth. And what do you got? There's no distinction there. So you have to speak Spanish and not have any confusing sound used. Right. And what Jake is bringing up there is something that we'll move to eventually, like when we actually talk about phonology. Essentially, how different accents are produced is that people grow up speaking a certain language and having a certain way of like holding a posture with their mouth.
Okay. Yeah.
Right? Like if you imagine every language has a different posture. Like, English maybe is kind of like slouching a bit. Um, you
Fitting.
know, yeah, and the and the French are kind of like leaning on one foot, smoking a cigarette. Um, the when you try to speak another language and you learn that language, but you don't learn their sound system and you just apply the sounds that's how
Mm.
we get English speakers going bonjour, salut, instead of bonjour, salut, right? Uh,
Mhm.
it's actually, you know, some of these sounds are quite similar, and the way that we
Mhm.
make distinctions between them are one of the ways that we differentiate the phonologies of those languages.
Okay. So, like, my biggest pet peeve, people who say gyro.
Yes, instead of
Drives you crazy.
giro or
Mhm.
gyro, which I think is a more, not everybody needs to make that other sound, but like I think
Mhm.
gyro is a good one. When I
Mhm.
uh, when I went to the Michigan and I met up with some friends, and uh, they're like, "Oh, there's a great place where we can get gyros." I was like, "Old-timey helicopters? Like, what are you
Mhm.
talking about?" Um, and then they meant gyros. I was like, "Ah, I see." Just one of these
Yeah.
Americanisms. Uh, I remember quite distinctly when I was, I don't know, like 11 or 12, and I was in the United States. And I was just the TV was just kind of on while my parents were getting some stuff ready before we were like going to the beach or something, and like their version of Home and Garden Television was on, and there was a guy introducing someone to a property in Florida, and he's like, and they're like, "Wow, this is a big foyer," and my mind broke, my little 12-year-old mind. I was like, "Why are they saying it like that?"
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
uh, yes, yes, yeah, we mean the Greek food. Um,
Yeah.
so, you know, foyer, like the way.
Mhm.
So the way that people interpret different, not just the way that they interpret certain orthographies, but
Mhm.
how things sound to them and whether they sound right or not. And that's
Right.
going to be informed, that's going to be cultural. It's going to be informed by the kinds of words you're exposed to. But it's also going to be learned over time through um, just your embodied experience of using language. Like a big thing with whether people say GIF or whether people say GIF for the now obsolete
Mhm.
form of images. Um, uh, it's based on just kind of like unconscious preferences that you learn over time.
Yeah, that
And
makes
like
sense.
you're presented suddenly with a new word, and you just have to slot it into your existing constellation um, of experiences and sounds that you have.
Mhm.
Uh, yeah, Heroes. Yeah, that's what I would say. D. Uh,
Yeah.
Bavelia, Ross casually roasts a whole bunch of people who didn't realize they've been mispronouncing words their whole lives. I mean, they can
Yeah.
say it however they like. Like for me,
Mhm.
I am very descriptive in my approach to language. Like language is produced, in community, and so
Mhm.
if Michiganders all understand each other when they're saying that, that's fine.
Right.
That's wonderful for them. I'm sure they're really enjoying themselves right now in this period of time.
Yeah.
Um, but uh, there are going to be those differences, and I think those differences are, you know, funny to remark on because it's only through those differences that we can realize that the way that we use language is not the only way of using language.
Mhm.
um,
Yeah.
and it can help us like engage and explore a bunch of different things. Like, I don't know, for one of the languages in my project, I was looking for a sound system, and I was like, oh, and I just kind of stumbled and decided to like essentially use like the like a Texas accent vowel system,
Mhm.
but put it into a sort of triconsonantal root language, which was very funny to me.
I don't
Uh,
know what the second part means, but the first part sounds fun.
yes, for the people who do know what that means. Um, They'll have a bit of a kick out of that.
Mm,
Alveolar sounds. So T. So tag,
uh,
talk, dog,
uh,
name, the N
uh,
sound there.
mhm,
All of those alveolar consonants. We
mm,
know them. We love them. They're pretty prolific and they're pretty common across linguistically. So bilabial sounds, alveolar sounds, you're going to see them in a lot of languages. Like that's
mhm,
going to be really common. If a language doesn't have a bilabial sound or an alveolar sound, it's going to be kind of remarkable, just
mm.
in that it's interesting. Um, we've got another fun one, which is kind of
Okay.
in this gang of sounds that are made around the alveolar ridge.
Uh-huh.
Uh, and these are the post alveolar sounds. And in English, we have a few of these sounds. Um, but the one that we're going to talk about right now is the first sound in show.
Okay.
So, yeah, when you make that sh sound, you can describe
Mm.
like where's your tongue.
Like the middle-ish of my tongue is pressed up near the ridge, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
The alveolar ridge.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Kind of more touching on the sides a little bit, and then there's a little bit of airflow right there at the top, like pressed up against. I guess the airflow is like pressed up against the ridge.
Yeah. So when we say, yeah, so
Ooh, ooh. Say an R
uh,
like that. Ooh.
and so yeah, so what's happening there is that kind of um, the front or the body of your tongue is being pressed up or near the post-alveolar ridge, and that's the
Mhm.
space between the alveolar ridge and the top of your mouth or the palate.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense. Oh,
Hmm.
to what, Graydon commented about, it seems that words should be borrowed via hearing them and not reading them. Something
Right.
that might, on that might explain a lot is that I was the type of kid that, like, read a lot and was kind of antisocial. So a lot of my vocabulary I learned by reading it. So, like, other than your basic words for the most part, like, I never learned those words with how to pronounce them, so I actually have always had pretty bad pronunciation of, like, more advanced words even though I know a ton of them because I never learned to speak them, which might explain a lot here.
Yeah. And I mean, it's not to say that words should or shouldn't be borrowed in any particular way. Uh,
Mhm,
I think, like, from a social sciences perspective, because we have technologies like language and writing, both of those afford different kinds or lend themselves to different kinds of borrowings.
mm,
Uh, and I mean, it's a fun part of language change as well, where like a community is introduced to a word that's written, and then they're like, oh, well, how are we going to pronounce this? And
hmm,
the speech community decides what the pronunciation is going to be in real time by just kind of saying it at each other, and people disagree over how it's said. Uh,
mhm,
with your situation where you're reading words that exist within a speech community already, but you're not
mhm.
saying them, uh, uh, like, when on a normal day do you have to say like epsilon or something like that?
Right, yeah.
So, uh, uh, but there is a speech community that does have a more or less agreed upon way of pronouncing those things. So when you say them, people are
Mhm.
like, "What are you talking about?"
Yeah, I get that a lot.
But then there's also things like, and the different speech communities will say will use things differently. So there's the
Mm.
word. Where's my little numbers here? There we go. So I'm gonna hijack this spot for a sec. This word.
Epoch?
Yes, I would say epoch as well.
Mm-hmm.
Some people would say epic,
Oh,
which,
there's no I.
well, that's like there are
Yeah,
different
yeah,
etymological
yeah.
reasons as to why people would say it epic. But
Okay.
when I see it, I see epoch, and both epic
Yeah,
and epoch are ways that this word is pronounced.
yeah.
And so, that's totally fine.
Mm.
But sometimes, you can encounter a word and say it, and people are like, no, it's commonly agreed that you say it this way.
Mm-hmm.
And I think everybody experiences that. Um, while Bavaria, by the end of this, you will have the IPA, so you can describe it in a more accurate way.
And maybe I'll even know what it means.
Yeah,
Maybe.
maybe. Um, so now that we're at our post-alveolar spot, so in English as well, like something that is a little deceptive about the orthography is that there are words like television,
Mm-hmm.
and that combination of si at the end,
Mm.
television, zh.
Je.
So if you make the sound zh and compare it to
Je.
sh,
Je. Je.
what's the difference
Je.
there?
Voiced?
Yes, the distinction is voice.
Eminem.
Eminem. And so in English, we have a handful of different digraphs, or what a digraph is a combination of two characters or glyphs in a language, in a written language, in an orthography, that signify a particular sound. And so we
Okay.
have sh, we have si, and we also have ti, like in construction, right?
Mm-hmm.
But Bavaria, that is the point
I don't know.
of,
I don't know what that means.
well, P.
I see an I, a P, and a K, so I'd be like, pack? Pack? I don't know. That's about
Well,
close as I got
hey,
to
the
that.
P and the K is good.
Look at me, 50%.
50%. Hey, by the end of
Mm.
it, you'll be closer to 100%.
55.
55. Hey, that's growth.
Yeah.
That's improvement. That's getting your
Mm.
personal best.
True. True.
Uh, so
Mm.
to continue, there are a group of
Yeah.
sounds that are included in the IPA that are not in standard Canadian or American English,
Oh,
called retroflex consonants.
okay.
Have you heard of retroflex consonants before?
I mean, I probably haven't have just it's gone.
How do you think you would make a retroflex sound?
Maybe bending the tongue the other way, like I don't know.
Yeah, it is. You
Yeah.
do bend the tongue back. Yeah,
Okay.
you bend it the other way, you can have an M&M.
Oof.
Retroflex consonant sounds are particularly common in a language area around South Asia.
Okay.
And I'm familiar with retroflex sounds in Pashto, which is a language spoken in Central and South Asia, particularly in Afghanistan and Pakistan. And but it's also spoken in languages in Australia, so Indigenous Australian languages as well. I mean, more languages use it, but
Okay.
that's just off the brim there. And what you do is you curl your tongue back. You can use the flat of your tongue or whatever, and you're going to be touching that spot just kind of behind the post-alveolar ridge. And
Okay.
you would make a sound like ta, da,
God.
ta, ta, da, sha, ja, la.
Okay. So kind of like you're just kind of pushing the, because you're still making the are you still making this sound with like the front of your tongue too, and also pushing your tongue further back up?
You're using the front. So if we can try something. So if you start, put your tongue on your teeth and say
Okay.
ta,
Ta,
and then move your tongue further back. Ta,
ta,
ta. Just keep moving it up your
ka.
mouth.
Okay. Okay.
Ta.
I see. Ka.
There you go.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, so when you start getting to the top there, you got ta and da. And the thing with retroflex consonants is that
Uh.
there are going to be there are a few ways to pronounce it. So sometimes
Mm,
it's just with the curled tip of the tongue. Sometimes it's with more of the base of the tongue.
mm.
Uh, there are a whole host of retroflex consonants and the sounds that they
Okay.
make.
Okay. And I would probably recognize, so Jake said if there's a lot in Mandarin and Korean. I watch a lot of Mandarin and Korean TV, so I would probably, those sounds would probably, like, I'd recognize the sounds maybe from those.
Yeah, I think you would probably recognize the sounds. I mean,
Mm.
it's very common. I think in when in Indian English, it's like
Mm.
India, the subcontinent. When people from India speak English, oftentimes they have noticeable T's and D's when they talk.
Mm.
And
Yeah, okay.
that would probably be the way that many English speakers would encounter it.
Mm. Okay.
Yeah, that'd be the way that most people encounter it. It's not something that I usually see in conlangs,
Mm.
and that's probably because a majority of English speakers don't make this sound regularly, so they have
Mm.
trouble uh, making it, and then they also have trouble distinguishing it. And that's one of the
Yeah.
things too, when because there are languages that distinguish between the retroflex ta and a more dental ta.
Oh,
But
weird.
our English sound ta is closer to ta than ta.
Yeah.
So and we're going to get into that more when we talk about phonology. But the just basic retroflex continent, consonant, just this kind of unvoiced plosive sound that we're talking about, um, is where's that? There we go. There. Oh, put it in the wrong one. Oop. He's got a little tail. And that's how you're going to notice retroflex consonants. They have this little distinctive tail.
Okay.
Oop.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah. And then, of course,
Huh.
little
Okay.
boop, little
Okay.
retroflex tail. Just to let you know, they're a little curvy, a little different.
Okay. Okay. I can vibe with that.
Yeah. So if you see that little tail, you can go, oh, okay, that's a retroflex consonant. The creators of the IPA and people who edit it being very, inventive. It's a T that you say with a curled tongue. We'll just little curled thing on the end. That's fine. I
I
have
mean,
to
it
imagine.
helps. Anything to like visually like make connections, I feel like will help make it easier to remember with the symbols.
Yeah, no, for sure. Now we're going to move on to palatal sounds,
Okay.
and those are made at the front of your palate. Evidently, right?
Mm-mm.
Um, we make one of those sounds regularly that we distinguish in English, and that is the y sound, which is at the beginning of words like yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Ye-
So if you say, or there is also the sound in canyon. However, I mean, it's not like a distinct sound in English.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yep, like the
Yeah.
sound that cats make in anime.
Yeah.
Um, um, so we have we also can make consonant sounds in that place. So we can make other consonant sounds in that place. The y sound is often known as an approximate or a semi-vowel because it's very similar to some vowel sounds. But if you we'll circle back around to that. But at this point in time, we will have yeah.
Yeah.
So the J is used for the y sound. So it's best not to think of the Y, and it's better to think of in a lot of Germanic languages and in other languages that J sound sort of represents a y sound. Yeah.
Because it's like a further back J? Is it like a further back, like, oh, the j, yeah, like it's kind of further back, but it's like a similar sound? Don't think about why.
No.
Yeah.
We can talk about why. I mean, we can get there in a sec. We will put a pin in that. I commend your concept matching ability there in thinking that through. When we talk about manner of articulation, we will return to the so-called J sound.
Okay.
Behind the palate, and this will help us talk about palatal sounds, we have velar sounds, and we've already encountered these, and that is the sound that we make when we say things like goat.
Okay.
Goat. Right. G. But also sounds like kayak.
Yeah. K.
And then in some forms of English, and historically in English, there's a way of saying loch, like Loch Ness. That sound would also be made. That h sound would also be made there.
Okay.
But if we just take this as K, a lot of, depending on the environment that K is in English, so what other sounds are around the letter K is its environment, we can actually pronounce K more forward in the mouth. Like if you say king as opposed to cool. Cool.
Yeah,
king.
king cool. Yeah.
Yeah. So where we say the y sound, you can say k.
Yeah, okay.
So there are sublanguages that would distinguish between cat and cat, which, so cat, cat. And it's not a distinction that many people can readily hold in English because we don't make that distinction. Klingon, king, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, cat. There's also, so there are some sound environments in English that can trigger velar sounds to make palatal sounds, and we'll go through some of the symbols for those differences. Got the velar, and then we're getting deeper. This is now we're going to talk about uvular. I think among English-speaking conlangers, this is probably considered like a very guttural sound. You know, it would be associated with things like the Klingons, but also gyros, right? Like the gyro, like that's the sound. That is a uvular sound that is made at the beginning of that word. It is made.
Yanis kind of stuff.
And it's made by touching the back of the tongue to where the uvula is. And so you can go ka, ga, ka. You can have the French R sound. Yeah, like français. That's back there as well.
Okay.
But the sort of we've got that uvular sound there, which uses the Q. And what's interesting about, and something that we can open up now, I'm going to type 2 words, and if you could say them, and then describe what's different between them.
With
You have to say it out loud.
queen.
Yeah.
Queen.
And then the one above it.
Oh, okay. Keen.
Yeah.
Keen. Queen. Keen. Keen is further back. Keen. Queen. I feel like the vowel sounds feel slightly more for keen. Queen. Keen. The shape's a little different.
How is the shape different?
The keen, that feels, the tongue feels a little flatter. Queen is a little bit more like rounded in the back.
It's more rounded.
Mm. Oh, okay.
There's something else you're doing,
Okay.
which is that keen, the k, and queen, they're both velar.
Okay.
But when we say queen, we are rounding our lips and making the k sound.
Yeah, the kind of.
Yeah. So the difference between keen and queen is the adding of labialization. And that's a fancy way of saying you are engaging 2 places of articulation here. You are engaging the velar and you're engaging the labial.
Okay.
So we make a distinction in English between a rounded k sound with queen and an unrounded k sound with keen.
Okay.
We have another consonant in English, which is a labiovelar consonant.
Is that Q, is it?
Q is the orthography. That's the character that represents the labialized velar
right.
unvoiced stop.
Okay.
Greg, you have to put your hand up.
And it's velar?
Yeah. When, if you just hold the when, why, you'll notice your tongue rises up as you round your lips.
Well, I guess it does.
Yeah.
It just doesn't go like all the way up.
Right, because it is an approximate sound or one of those semi-vowels that still allows the air to go through unobstructed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Poor Greg. It's okay.
It's okay.
I was
Greg.
too distracted to even look. I think we've noted that I'm unobservant, also given that I can literally see my face. It's right next to chat, and I wasn't even looking at my face. So like, oh.
So yeah, so we do have a couple of sounds in English that are velar, but also have another articulation. There are some languages, including Slavic languages, that have, and Celtic languages like Gaelic, that have differentiations between consonants kind of solely based on those. So you could have a difference between something like pop and piop.
Yeah.
And the difference between that is that the piop, the first P sound, is also palatalized. So when you add in these different points of these different places of articulation, these double articulated consonants, you can start to describe languages that have different kinds of sounds. And then you can also think about the ways in which you can incorporate these different kinds of sounds into your own conlanging.
Oh, okay. A lot of Pacific Northwest languages too.
Yeah, so you can labialize any sound that isn't already labialized. You may notice in English when we when we make our palatal alveolar sounds, so the sh sound, we often round our lips when we make that sound, even if it doesn't, even if a vowel like o doesn't follow it. So she, if you say she, your lips will start to round.
Yeah.
And so there's languages that distinguish between she and she, which is a whole, like, you know, whether your lips are rounded or not. It's so, yeah, languages are wild. And I think that, you know, the sheer diversity and innovation and capacity we have for it is pretty extensive. When we're moving towards almost anything can be a distinction if you believe hard enough. That is true. The important part, though, is whether or not a speech community can consistently maintain a distinction. So there are some distinctions that are more volatile, and they are open to merging or changing in order to make themselves more distinct with the sound changing, or they can merge with other sounds, which would in turn propagate other sound changes to make different sounds distinct.
Okay.
So often when we're talking about phonologies, we are focusing on the distinctions in those in all of these sounds. But in order to talk about them, we gotta understand the system that we tend to use to describe them.
Okay.
Now we are moving into the last two spots, and I'm going to skip the penultimate spot here, and we're going to move straight to glottal. We're coming back to it.
Okay.
So.
Is it like uh-oh?
Yes.
Oh, no, this is...
It is uh-oh. You can have it. So the catch in your throat when you go uh-oh is a glottal consonant. And there are languages that make that use glottal consonants to make important distinctions. English has another glottal consonant too. And what's notable about the glottal consonant is that it's made in the vocal cords.
It's just like
It would be the h sound, like happy.
Happy. Oh, happy. Okay.
Happy. So happy, the h sound there is the glottal fricative, and that's the one that English speakers use.
Okay.
Happy, right. So now that we've dealt with happy, we can take a step back and look at another one of those sounds that doesn't appear in English. The pharyngeal sounds.
Pharyngeal. Okay.
This is another one.
Yeah, it sounds like a dinosaur.
Another one of these, like, you know, guttural. You can't see me doing air quotes. Consonants that English speakers often imagine. It is when it's when the back of your tongue goes even further back than the uvular. And this is, I think we could see this pretty frequently in Arabic. It's the line sound. They can be voiced or unvoiced. So I would recommend trying to So we will get back there. I trust you. We will get back there, and I will have you demonstrate at some point how to make a pharyngeal sound. We're just gonna... What is going on? Oh, I mistook my screen share for my actual screen. There we go. So I'm gonna put that there. I'm gonna put the little hooky guy there, and we will come back to it.
Okay. Okay.
But this is all of the relevant, important places of articulation. People can further subdivide them or combine them for different languages based on how those languages make those sound distinctions and what is the most convenient way to describe the language. Yeah. Do you have anything you would like to ask about the places of articulation?
I don't think I have any serious questions.
Do you have any unserious questions?
So I know, like, we'll get to the part that's like the, what are they called? Like, to rolling your R's, like, what are they, like trills and something or other?
We will get to trills, yes.
What would the place be if you do like a trill on the front of your lips, like up here? That's my question.
Can you demonstrate it? Okay, so that is not a place of articulation in the IPA. No, but like there are extended versions of the IPA, and these are used to describe hypothetical sounds, to investigate why we don't make these sounds. And they are also used to describe different speech pathologies as well. But one of the big things, like if you stick your tongue out and try to, do a trill on the top of your teeth or the top of your lips.
Yeah. I can't do my teeth. I could just do like up here.
Yeah. We could hypothetically come up with a name for that place of articulation in the Madeline PA. The Madeline's phonetic alphabet.
Oh God. It's literally English plus that character.
English plus that character. But like, and that's one of the limitations of the IPA. So what the IPA is linguolabial. What linguolabial describes is a bit different than that, I will say. What a linguolabial is describing is the tip of your tongue touching the bottom of your upper lip. Pa.
Okay. Pa. Pa.
Pa. Pa. Fa. The. And not sticking it up and curling it around and trilling it on the top of your lips. So I will make a distinction
party
there.
Trick.
Yeah, the party trick sound. But like the limitations of the IPA are that it was made and you're also curling your lips in. Yeah, that's the other thing. Yeah. There's a whole bunch of movements happening there that make it particularly unlikely to be a sound that we would hear in a natural language that humans would speak. Yes.
That's why it's my party trick, because a lot of people can't do it.
Yeah, which is why it is not a sound that we use to keep.
That makes sense.
Yeah. You want to ensure that most people can kind of make a sound if you're supposed to use it to convey information. So we went through all of the places of articulation. Now we're going to talk about manners of articulation.
Okay.
And manners of articulation are the kinds of obstructions that we make. And the first kind of obstruction that we're going to talk about is going to be the nasals, because it's usually at the top of the chart, and I think it's useful to begin in that place, largely to get it out of the way.
That's like, is nasal?
Can you use it in a context?
Nat?
Yes, that is a nasal sound. So the sound in mop, nasal sound. Nat is a nasal sound. Where do you think the sound in mop should go?
Bilabial?
Bilabial, yeah. And where do you think the one in how about king? The nasal sound in king.
That's in the... It's not... I mean, you can maybe pronounce it like either uvular or velar, probably.
Velar, yeah.
Okay.
Velar's good. A uvular nasal, la, is more like
La.
Yeah. So it's further back there, and it has a pretty great. It's a little uppercase N. That's our little uvular sound there. How about the one in note?
Then alveolar?
I may have, alveolar. I think I spelled it wrong on here.
Okay, good. Because I was like, wait a second.
You have seen this word before. You can pronounce it.
I thought I could, but like I don't trust myself.
Alveolar.
Aloe vera, yeah, that one.
Alveolar, the aloe vera consonants, brilliant.
Yeah.
There are also.
Nihan? Sorry. I was reading one of Jake's messages. Nihan?
We also can have a retroflex. So if you say ta, na, we can have a retroflex one.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Boop. And then palatal. And we already had this. What does a cat say in Japanese? You don't know? Nya.
Okay.
It says
nya. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
that is our palatal there. What is going on? That's not the right one. Boop. Yeah. So we
lasagna.
Lasagna. Yeah.
Yeah.
Lasagna. Yan cat. I guess what do people say, like jalapeno? The nya at the end sound at the end of there.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So these are all the nasal sounds that we are going to look at. You can look at extended IPA, and there are also a bunch of symbols in the IPA that you can use to specify different places of articulation. So example, with this N, can you make an N sound on the back of your teeth? Nah. Yeah. So what we would do in that case is we would have our little N here, and is it going to let me do it? Yes, it is. You add a little bridge below, like a little pair of chompers beneath the N.
Huh.
And that lets you know that it is a dental nasal sound.
No. Okay.
Yeah. And now that we have nasals out of the way, we are going to move on to what has more or less been the star of the show so far, which are stops, which are also known as plosives.
Pa, ba, ta,
Yeah.
ga.
What do all those have in common?
You stop the flow of air and then release it.
Yeah, that is a quintessential sort of definition of a plosive. You are obstructing the air and then releasing it from a particular place of articulation.
Okay.
Now we are going to kind of go through our little list here, and you're gonna play a bit of a game.
Okay.
Which one of these is not a plosive?
Oh gosh.
So let's go through the list.
Okay. So pa is
Yep.
is that the
Oh, should I zoom in? There we go.
oh that's not.
That's
right?
not Eminem. Boom.
Yeah.
Get out of there. To use.
Is that the TH sound?
Mm-hmm. That's good. Yeah, you remembered that. Excellent.
That's not.
That's not. No.
Yeah.
Get that boyo out of there.
T is.
T is. Yeah.
Ta.
I'd ask that you make the sound before you decide.
Is that? I don't know what sound that is. This squiggly dude.
It's post-alveolar.
Right.
And we only have a few post-alveolar sounds in English.
Is that the Y? Yeah.
That's over here. That's palatal. That's close.
Yeah.
No.
No.
It's the sh sound.
Oh. Okay. Yeah.
A little sh
okay.
guy.
Yeah. Sh is not.
Sh is not. That is true.
Mm-hmm.
Now we got the retroflex. Little curled T there. You have to try to make the sound.
I'm trying very quietly out of shame.
Well, the quickest way to learn how to make sounds and learn language is to do it around people who already know how to make the sounds, and then they make fun of you, and then you do better. This is how I have learned language.
Wonderful. Okay, so retroflex was it's curved the other way, so it's like in the back, so it's like good.
Oh, it's just behind where you would make a t sound. It's not that far back.
Yeah.
So if you hear it, ta.
Yeah.
What does that?
Okay.
What's that feel like?
It's definitely a plosive.
There we go.
Ta.
Now we're on to palatals. Always remember when we're moving left to right, we're moving front to back. So don't jump too far.
Okay.
That's why it's important to make the sound in your mouth, so you can remember in your mouth where the place is. You want to join the place to the action.
Okay.
So now we're at palatals, which is at the front of the top of the mouth.
Front of the top of the mouth.
And we had a little conversation about how this little J represents a sound that isn't intuitive to an English speaker.
Yeah.
Close.
Yeah.
Yeah, like in yes.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Is that a plosive?
No.
No. Boop. Okay, then we got this one.
Okay.
Yep.
Definitely a plosive.
Definitely a plosive. And if you try to make a k sound further back in where your uvula is,
ka.
You have to make a k sound. Try to make a k sound.
Ka.
Ka.
Ha.
Yeah, there you go. That's getting closer. Yeah.
Okay.
And how's that?
Plosive.
Plosive. Excellent. Now, is the H sound? Yeah.
Well, ha, like ha, hello. Wait, the ha and like hello?
Yeah.
Ha. That's not.
That's not. Excellent.
The uh-oh sound would be though, right? The glottal
sound would be brilliant.
You can have stop in the name.
That. It does. It's like the only. It is a glottal stop.
It's a very helpful name there.
Yeah. Well, that's the one that is referred to by its place, right? Like it's the one that's referred to by its place of articulation.
Wait,
All
that
the
is?
others, we don't do that in common conversation. So we have gone through this list, and we have what is similar about all of these consonants that we just broke up?
The ones we brought down.
Just all the ones that we just went through. All of the ones that we compared with our stops and plosives.
So the one in the third row down with the.
Sure. Oh well.
That was
The sound p and the sound f. What do they share in common?
I mean, other than being stops.
Well, f isn't a stop.
Oh wait. And
I do have to stress that you have to say it out loud, or you will not
Huh?
catch some of these distinctions. Yeah.
Are they all voiced?
They are unvoiced.
Unvoiced.
Yes. And this is
oh yeah.
yeah, if you say something under your voice, you don't actually vibrate your voice box, so you won't be able to tell the difference, which is why you have to say them out loud.
Okay, I'm gonna try. Keep
stress.
yelling at me when I whisper them.
Excellent. So if we voice the sound in the box, what do we get?
Pa.
And we voice it.
Pa.
Ba. Ba. There we go.
Okay.
Excellent. And now we have the fa sound. What happens if we voice fa?
I mean, every time I try to do a say, I feel like I'm just like fa.
That's hey, whatever works.
Fa.
Okay. How about we try something here? Okay. That word? I just typed a word. Facts. Okay.
Facts.
What's the difference between the first sound?
Facts.
You have to say it out loud.
Facts. Vax. Vax is voiced.
There we go. All right.
Okay.
You gotta. Okay. Now we have this one. This fancy one.
So I mean that one's sh.
This one is
the.
Yes. This is the sound in through. Or throw.
Through. So would that be the? That would be voice?
Yes.
Okay.
Perfect. And we have a little fancy guy for this one.
Oh boy.
That is an F. That is a letter from that is kind of derived from Old English or Middle English.
Oh boy.
Yeah. So now we are going to move on to the sound here. So we have
tan, Dan.
Yep. And so duh. Yeah. So duh is the voiced one there. Now we're back to the squiggly one.
Is that the sh?
It is 100% the sh. You can have an M&M.
So that the voiced one would that be like zh?
Yes.
Like with a ZH?
Yes. That is 100% the voiced one. So we can throw down. But you're learning.
But true.
And then so the difference between I'm going to make the sounds, and then you can try to copy me. Ta, da.
Ta, da.
Yes.
Ta, da.
Ta and da.
Ta,
and
da
would be the voiced one. Oh no, we got rid of the unvoiced one.
Oh no, it's been kicked out of the IPA. It's gone forever.
Whoop.
Removed from all languages. Thank you, Didi.
That would be shocking. And then for ka. So came.
Game.
And this is where IPA being derived from English really helps.
I like those.
Like those. So we don't have this sound in English, but if you take the g sound further back,
Ga,
yeah,
ga,
that would
ga.
be your voiced velar stop, and that's a little G guy. So you do have ka and ga.
Ka, ga,
Yeah,
ka, ga.
yeah. Uh, Now moving back here, the IPA does not. You could, using other symbols, make a voiced glottal in standard depictions of the IPA. They do not include a voiced glottal stop.
Okay.
Just putting that out there, unless there was like an updated one from like the last couple of years where they decided to add one in. They constantly change it, and
Okay.
they change letters around and things like that, unless someone's being angry in the comments.
That's so helpful.
Khomeini, yeah.
Khomeini?
What are they talking about?
I don't know.
Look at Madeline getting
The
faster and
sound for
faster.
Farsi?
Yeah, because I do speak Persian. We can talk about that later. That may be useful. But we do have H. So if you say happy, and then you voice that sound.
Ha. Ah?
Yeah, literally, you just have your mouth open going, ah,
Okay.
happy.
I felt like that had to be wrong.
No, it's not wrong. It's very difficult to distinguish from from a vowel sound that's pretty common in English. Boop. So then we have the dark H.
Okay.
So now what we're going to do is we go through the rest of the list. We're going to talk about the voicing of each as well and kind of add that in. However, what we can see as we're looking through so far is that what we can see as we're looking through so far, when we're looking at the IPA, it has a particular logic where you're moving kind of from the front of the mouth to the back of the mouth. And the characters that they use, the glyphs they use to kind of represent these sounds, are exceptionally similar to the English letters that are kind of corresponding to it. So that's why I feel that, like, English speakers don't really have much of an excuse. Yeah, like you have, like, it's a secret, like, backdoor way into the IPA, because if someone who doesn't speak English, and especially someone who doesn't speak an Indo-European language, particularly a European one like German or French or Italian, they'll be at a disadvantage when learning this because they have to learn the orthography and they have to learn the sound distinctions and the whole chart at the same time. And since I've taught this to groups in a university setting that include international students, there's definitely a learning curve for international students. What I will say, though, is that international students who are second language English speakers, as well as having their own primary or multiple other languages that they speak that are not English, they're able to pick up on the actual production of sounds much quicker because they have a distinct set or of sounds to draw upon. So they have more material that they have experience with that they can draw on to kind of make these sounds.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So there are advantages to both kind of situations. Qalb is the Arabic word for heart. Yes. Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Qalb.
Qalb. Yeah.
Qalb.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's how you do it. Because now when you look at this, when you look at kalp, right?
Mm.
Uh, you can have you would recognize the first letter there, the first
Mm.
character, as an unvoiced uvular plosive.
In theory, yes.
Yeah, you understand as an English speaker what sounds an A could make.
Yeah.
You understand as an English speaker what sound an L makes.
Mm.
And then you understand, and then we just went through that the B character is a voiced
Mm.
labial plosive. So,
Yeah.
we're getting there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Though the L in kalp is different than the L that English speakers would use in that situation. But, that's fine.
Mm.
So now we are going to discuss some of these friends that are hanging out in
Okay.
the next row here, and we're going to talk about fricatives,
Okay.
and we're going to talk about them in a very broad way.
Mm.
There are more distinctions that can be made than we are making here,
Mm.
but we are going to be, and I think it's for the people watching. I also think it's useful to cover kind of major groups of sounds before moving on to groups of sounds that are less numerous in the IPA.
Mm.
I'm also going to focus on ones that have, more dedicated characters, or at least have had dedicated characters for the last, 20 years or so. Because they make new characters and they change them.
Oh.
That's okay.
Oh.
So when we move on to this fricative section, what are some things that you notice from some of these that we have talked about? And I'm going to move out the characters that are not fricatives.
Okay.
There we go. Not a fricative. Don't have to worry about that one. So if we just zoom
They
out, yeah.
they're like almost plosives where there's like a very small like place that air is going through. Like
Mm-hmm.
they're like almost touching.
Yes.
I mean, they're sort of touching, but there's like uh, like right?
Yeah. No, that is
Yeah.
the air is being the articulators for those for fricatives are placed close together that still allow air through,
Mm.
but they produce turbulence.
Mm.
And it's the
Friction.
turbulence. Yeah, it's the friction. The
Yeah, Stevie
fricate.
says that.
Uh,
Yeah.
it is that turbulence that produces those sounds. Uh,
Okay. Mm.
yeah. And what's lucky for us is that each of these spots is going to have their own little fricatives in them.
Okay.
So if we're back here, so can you make for me a bilabial fricative sound?
Okay. So instead of like pa, it would be like va, va.
Yes.
Okay.
So you have fa and va.
Va, va.
Yes, but you're not making them with your teeth. So it's not fa and va. It is
Va, va,
fa and va. You're making them with your
va,
lips.
va,
Yeah.
va, va.
Yeah. That is, that is exactly what we are looking for there.
Mm.
And we have some fancy characters, which you will be familiar with, which will be very fun. So
Okay.
this is the unvoiced sound.
Yeah. Okay.
And the reason why it is this sound is because this sound is also made in Greek.
Mm.
So the IPA just burgled Greek orthography and took things that worked.
Okay.
We've also the voiced bilabial fricative is this sound.
Mm. Va.
And so if we look at your ABCs up there,
Ah. Oh yeah.
yeah.
Va.
So it is the A, the, and then we'll get to that other character up there in a bit.
Okay.
Yeah. And now we can move through. Then we have the not doing it. This is wanting to be difficult. So then we have the fa and the va.
Mm-hmm.
And then which ones are here again?
That be the
Start with the one on the left. This one.
not the. It's there.
This one is the unvoiced dental fricative.
Those. Those.
Well, you want to put your hands on your vocal cord. There.
The. There. Those. The.
Through.
Like words through.
There. See.
Through. Okay.
Yeah. So just hold that sound. Hold the beginning sound in through. Right?
Okay.
That's the unvoiced. Yeah. Now make the voiced one.
The.
There we go. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's the distinction
Thing, there. Theta. Okay.
Yeah.
Thing, theta.
That's what this one is. Theta. That's theta.
I will warn you. I can, not that I remember much Greek, I can like ask to go home, please, and a few, like I can count a little bit. But I've forgotten most of it, and I never learned the characters very well because it was mostly just speaking with people. But
yeah. More example words, please. It is hard to differentiate with a mic, but you know we're doing our best here. So theta and eth, or eth. But yeah, so those are there. Now,
okay.
Well, we have a blank space.
Okay.
You know, and we need to fill this blank space. What are some fricatives that you know in English that we have not talked about?
Is that S and Z?
Yes, it is S and Z. So, how would you describe S using this language that we've talked about so far?
Unvoiced.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's alveolar, right?
It is alveolar, yes.
Yeah, because it's right there.
And what's the manner of articulation?
Is that the fricative part?
It is. So we would say it's an unvoiced alveolar fricative for
that
character.
Okay.
You got there. You did all the parts.
Okay.
And how would you describe Z then?
Same thing but voiced.
Same thing but voiced. That is true. Same thing but voiced. So now we have the whole gang here.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got th and the, sa and z, and sh and zh.
Sh, zh. Okay.
And then for the retroflexes, do you remember how to do the plosive sounds for those?
Is that the ta?
Yes. Yep. So try to make an S sound in the position of ta or da.
Sha.
Mm-hmm.
Sha.
Yeah.
Sha.
Yes. And how would you describe those using the language that we've been using from the IPA?
So the voiced and unvoiced retroflex fricatives?
Yes. There we go. And this is actually where we want to be at here, because now we can use your previous experience pronouncing the stops for those places of articulation, and you already
Okay.
know how some of those other manners are pronounced. So now we can
Okay.
start to move through. You notice a very conspicuous gap here with the palatals. There
Yeah.
are palatal stops.
Okay.
So remember how we said if you take the k and the g sound and you try to pronounce them where you make the y sound. Mm-hmm. So we've
Okay.
got that. The C represents. What do you think the C represents?
The unvoiced
Yes, the unvoiced.
palatal stop.
Yes,
Plosive?
the unvoiced palatal stop.
Okay.
And then the voiced palatal stop is going to be this upside down F. I think they kind of phoned it in with that one, to be honest.
Funny enough, that's actually how I draw my Fs.
Wild.
Because I normally have like you have a loop and then an upper loop, but I normally get too lazy to do the upper loop, so it just looks like an upside down F.
Brilliant.
Hmm.
We also have different kinds of fricatives for this position, but we're gonna talk about. We are going to talk about one of those. I'm just going to decide which one we're going to talk about. I mean, yeah. So we're gonna talk about this one, and we are going to come back to it after we hit the velar.
Okay.
Because I think that has been working out for us pretty well. What we're doing is essentially, there are sounds that you already know how to produce or that you're familiar with in some way. We will hit those sounds, and then we will go back to sounds that will be a little bit more difficult here, or just not necessarily difficult, just unfamiliar.
Yeah.
There we go. I have like a couple things up here that I'm moving around in the background. Okay. Do you remember? I did mention briefly that we use the velar unvoiced fricative in English, and I gave you an example. Do you remember the example? I don't blame you if you don't. It was very quick.
I don't remember.
Okay. So if you make a K sound, K.
K.
What could you try to make a fricative sound? An unvoiced velar fricative?
K.
K. Yes.
K.
And that is the sound that we sometimes hear in loch.
Oh, that's right.
Loch. And in the history of English, wherever you see a GH, most likely there was an unvoiced velar fricative. So the word that we have now, knight, as in a dude with a sword who kills people, that would have been pronounced somewhat like knicht.
Knicht?
Yes. So that is the character we use for the velar unvoiced fricative. Can you try to make a voiced velar fricative for me? Yeah. So it is like that. That is what we're going for here. So if I say ka is to ch, as ga is to ra.
Ra.
Yeah.
Okay.
That is good.
Ra.
Yep. Boom. The little loopy guy.
Ra.
It's like, so it's,
ha,
I like to think of this as the ch, the unvoiced velar fricative, is voiced because it has a little loop.
Ooh, okay.
That's what works for me.
Okay.
Yeah, now people are doing Canute and things like that. There we go. Excellent. Good time in the chat.
Yeah.
Now we're going to move back to the palatals.
Okay.
Great. So if you try to make a unvoiced velar fricative sound in the palatal spot. So more forward.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. So I will show you. And
Yeah. Yeah.
so k.
Yeah.
So k is to k, as h is to h.
Yeah.
Yeah, k. That's
Yeah.
h, h, h.
Yeah.
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 And that is where this one is.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
With the little Sedalia there.
Okay.
So your ABCs are the
Yeah.
f, h's.
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
We have unveiled. And then the voiced one is, so g is to g, as r is to r.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
R.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one's a little bit more difficult for you, it sounds like.
Yeah. Yeah.
G, r.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're getting there.
Okay.
Some of these are going to be difficult. Some languages also use sounds like r and ra for their rhotic sounds, their R sounds. So,
What?
yeah, what we call an R is not a distinct thing. A lot of different languages use different sounds to represent that R. In some forms, in some Chinese languages, it is actually the retroflex voiced fricative that's used as an R sound. Yeah. So
I have noticed there's a lot of like, especially when I'm watching like probably Mandarin more than Korean, but a little bit of both. When they write out like names or people's names in like Romanized, like the letters don't match what sounds they're making, at least for an English speaker.
yes, so there are a couple different romanizations. So when you are trying to render a language into the Latin script that is not written in the Latin script, that is called romanization.
Okay.
And there are several different romanizations for Chinese languages. I think Pinyin is probably one of the more common ones. And they do their best because Mandarin and other Chinese languages don't make the same kinds of sound distinctions that we do. So they don't make, they don't make the same kinds of sound distinctions that we do. So people who develop romanizations have to do the best to communicate the specific sounds or sets of sounds through a set of characters which already have a pre-understood meaning to the audience. So it is it's a very complex task to come up with a good romanization for a living language. And people have their own preferences for the aesthetic of how those turn out. You'll see conlangers argue about whether or not you should use digraphs, whether or not you should, use various supplemental characters to, augment the language, whether or not a romanization should be able to be typed on a normal keyboard. Like all of these things go into it.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. Now we are back at the uvular section. I think this is good that we hit the velar fricatives first. We've already talked about hiro, so ka, hiro.
Hiro. Yeah.
Something else with fricatives that you and people in the comments may notice is that some languages will have a different amount of turbulence. So for the velar fricative, the unvoiced velar fricative, you could have a h. You could also have h. Both of those could be unvoiced velar fricatives. So the amount of turbulence that you're hearing, and that differs between language and also speech community or dialect within the language. And there are ways in the IPA of noting those distinctions, or oftentimes linguists will also make up very like circumstantial additions to the IPA to kind of communicate that information.
Okay.
So yeah, so then we have our uvular, which is the long X, and then we have our uvular, voiced uvular fricative here, upside down capital R.
Great.
So is to h as r is to r.
Hua, hua,
R.
hua, 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 hua.
That last one was getting there.
Okay.
We've already filled out our glottals. Now we have the pharyngeal here. And this is one that I do not doubt will be difficult to produce, because it's and it is difficult to produce.
Okay.
So, which one do you think is the unvoiced?
The one on the left?
The one on the left. And what makes you say that?
That's how you've been writing the other ones?
That is good. So when linguists and conlangers, people who use the IPA, they will be consistent in whether a voiced or unvoiced consonant appears on the left or the right.
Okay.
That is an important part of the system. And it is something that, but it isn't necessarily consistent as to which side they will be on, because I have opened up linguistics books and I've seen phonologies where they will start with the voiced version of a sound. That is somewhat up to preference, but people will be consistent. Like I would never, like, people would not do this if they know what they're doing. Like they would not break the pattern. That would be unconscionable. Flogging would be necessary.
Okay.
Yeah. But apparently it's more common. Oh, what are we talking about?
I think something with romanization of certain letters or sounds.
Oh, yeah. Yes. People are now having the debate about how to romanize certain things. Terrible aesthetics for romanization. Yes. There we go.
So are we going to pronounce these ones?
We can do our best.
Okay.
So this is, you are trying to bring the back of your tongue essentially to the very back of your mouth and the very bottom of your mouth. If we are looking at our little guy, where'd the little guy go? Is he around here somewhere? Here he is. Hey. All right. Velum, k. Right? That's the K. Unvoiced velar fricative k. Unvoiced velar unvoiced uvular stop k. But we're trying to make fricative sounds. So we have k, ha, ha. That's pretty good. And then starting back up with the voiced velar fricative, it is ra,
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 ra.
ra.
Yeah. So you're getting there. But that's the one in like Arabic where you have like rein and stuff like that.
Rein.
Rein. Yes, that is good. Yeah, they're also in Hebrew, so a lot of Semitic languages, and many Afro-Asiatic languages have this sound. Pharyngeals are common in other places. They are most common as fricatives. Sometimes the pharyngeal sounds can be used as stops, but like usually as an unvoiced plosive. It is one that's it is possible to do, and oftentimes it is not a linguists will argue over how to divide and how speakers recognize different sounds for phonologies. But we can say it would be an unvoiced plosive sound, but you may get, and people may be making these sounds in languages, but they are in the same way that when we say King Kong, the k when you say king and the k when you say Kong.
King Kong. Yeah, they're different.
Right. So in some languages, if someone makes, say, a glottal stop, it could be a pharyngeal stop instead, because they're very close together.
Okay.
Oh yeah, I'm going to mention non-pulmonic consonants, but we're not getting into that. This is I understood this is explain it like I'm 5. Getting into just having Madeline understand IPA consonants.
That's a good point. I haven't even gotten to the vowels yet.
Yeah, we haven't even gotten to
calm
vowels.
down, everybody.
And they're like, oh, let's make Madeline do clicks. Let's come on.
We'll do a part 2 maybe. I don't know if Ross is willing to do all the weird stuff.
Oh yeah, no. We can totally do the weird stuff. Oh no, what happened? Okay.
It's good.
Yeah. We are now.
I don't even know what that means. Okay, sorry. Carry forward. We are now.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, so we have made it all the way through the fricatives.
Okay.
How do I want to do this? Cool. We are going to answer your question about the J. Remember I said put a pin in that?
No, I don't remember.
Okay, well, so we are going to go over here, and we are going to zoom in, and my spreadsheet is going to mess around. Here we go. If I write this word,
jump,
what's happening with this first sound here?
I mean, it sort of sounds like a fricative.
It sort of sounds like a fricative.
Yeah, it's a very forceful vowel. A more forceful fricative.
It is. So what you are describing is known as an affricate, and what's happening there, which I think may be revealed when I show you the character, because I think that they decided to show affricates in a very useful way.
Okay.
Can you tell me if the sound at the beginning is voiced or unvoiced?
Jump. Jump. Unvoiced. No. Voiced.
Voiced. Yes.
Yeah.
Boom. So, an affricate is a sound where you start from an obstructed position and you finish in a fricative position. So if you said jump, like a French person would.
Yeah.
Jump. So if you hold the beginning of jump. Like if you put your mouth in the posture where you would start to say jump, where is your tongue?
Across the back, pressing up against all the area behind, I guess, the ridge there.
And if you hold your tongue there, just hold your tongue there and try to push air through, what happens?
I mean, it stopped. It can't.
Right. So you're starting from a plosive position.
Right. Okay.
So you're starting from an alveolar or post-alveolar stop, and you are finishing in the post-alveolar fricative.
Okay.
Okay. What would the unvoiced version of that sound like?
jump.
Mm-hmm.
And the other one is the other one with J. It's J.
I just want you to get the position of your mouth,
Okay.
jump, and then
Jump.
don't voice it.
Jump.
J, 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 j.
J.
And then it may help for you to put your hand on your throat there. J, j, j. And then unvoice it out loud.
Well, what's another one that's unvoiced?
Yeah. So the unvoiced version of je is what?
Jump? I don't know.
Okay, let's
I'm definitely struggling with this distinction. Chump? Chump?
Chump.
Chump? Chump? Chump?
Chump and jump.
Jump. Yeah, okay.
And so we can have chump, which is this t sh. So it uses the symbol of the unvoiced alveolar stop, and it uses the symbol of the unvoiced palatal fricative, or the post-alveolar fricative.
Okay.
And so chump, cheese, choose, chill.
Okay. Chill, chump, choose.
Right. And in English, we usually render this as a CH, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then this j sound is sometimes a G, sometimes a J. I mean,
j.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Fun question. What does it sound like now if we had an alveolar affricate?
That?
Well, you want to start with a T and end with an S. Yes, yeah. So English doesn't really have this, but there are, other languages that do. I think one that we can look at would be something like
tsunami.
So tsunami, right? Like if you start with the T and then switch into the S. Oh
tsunami.
Yeah, somebody already typed tsunami. There we go. Tzatziki. Yeah.
Pizza. Tzatziki. Yeah.
Pizza.
Pizza.
Yeah, there we go.
Tsar.
Yeah. So it may not be something that we regularly use or we distinguish, but it is a sound in and of itself. And I'm just looking for the derpy little symbol for it.
Cats.
We do have this distinction at the end of words, like the difference between cat and cats is, sometimes referred to as an affricate, though, there's an argument among linguists as to whether it should be understood as an affricate or not. Affricates are much easier to identify at the beginning of segments. So at the beginning of a word or at the beginning of a syllable. At the end of a word, it can be a little different to distinguish between what is an affricate and what is a stop fricative cluster.
Okay.
And the way that linguists figure that out is they take audio recordings and they do like MRI scans and stuff of people's mouths, and they check in very close detail to see what is happening on a very minute scale. And then they decide, after arguing in papers that nobody reads, whether or not the sound is in fact a stop fricative cluster, or whether or not it's an affricate.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. So
you could also have a dental version.
Okay.
So that would be
Mm.
and th, um,
The
which is again something we don't distinguish,
the
but it is something that can be distinguished, and there isn't a special symbol
the
for this.
Okay.
So instead, they just take the unvoiced plosive and fricative symbols here, and they do a little tie to show you that they're together.
Okay.
That you should think of them as a little unit, and they do the same for the voiced ones. Sometimes you may also see this as well.
They twins.
Yeah, they're
Okay.
married. They're
Yeah.
a couple.
Okay.
They're hitched. That is one way that we can understand it.
Okay.
In some languages, like German, you have words like Pferd or horse.
Pferd.
Yeah, but this is a affricate. It is a
Pferd.
bilabial P to labiodental F affricate.
Pferd.
Yeah, Pferd. Yeah.
Pferd.
Yeah, excellent. So
Okay.
we can do that. And then there are also languages that have the voiced version of that as well.
Pferd. Baird.
Yeah.
Pferd.
Once you know how to make them, it's
Fjord.
it is pretty consistent to do. There are also bilabial affricates, in which case you don't switch to the F sound, and instead you make those front of mouth sounds that we were talking about earlier.
P, p,
Mm-hmm.
p.
Yeah, p and v.
V, v.
What do we got there? We need boop and boop.
I feel like these are the ones that make the most sense so far.
Yeah, I mean, it's about building blocks, right? Like it's about getting to this position where now it's just kind of about filling in parts of the chart. You can also have retroflex affricates. So cha and ja. One way of rendering that.
J, j, j. Is one way to think about the voice versus unvoiced is like it being like a higher sound versus like a lower sound in your throat? Is that?
Yes. So voicing can be perceived as a difference in pitch. That is something else that people can also. But what's interesting is sometimes voicing is thought of as sounding higher, and sometimes it's thought of as sounding lower, depending on the speech community. Same thing with nasalization. Nasalization is sometimes interpreted as increasing the pitch, raising the pitch, and sometimes it is interpreted as lowering the pitch. And that's because there isn't a single way for a speech community to interpret a given sound. There are also multiple ways that communities produce their phones. So as we mentioned before, you can have a group of people who use a stop, like the T sound, but they may produce their T on their teeth. So that will lend itself to certain kinds of sound changes that a T produced on the alveolar ridge or post-alveolar space differently, right? Like, if what am I looking at here? If you're saying printer and printer and printer, like all of those different T sounds are going to lend themselves differently to different sound changes based on how they influence their environments and based on how other sounds around them will influence them. And we also have to think about things like stress.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, so how sounds are interpreted by a given individual or by a broader speech community are going to be negotiated between how other people hear a sound, how other people make a sound, and what the sound environment is for the words that they happen in.
Okay.
But your observation that, yes, the voicing changes pitch or can be interpreted as a change of pitch is a very important part for things like historical linguistics and also for like phonetics when people are actually trying to study how different groups make a sound. We can also have, let's move to our happy little velar spot. Happy little velar spot. Where are we? Here. Can you make a velar affricate for me, an unvoiced velar affricate?
Unvoiced velar affricate.
Yeah. Unvoiced.
Unvoiced.
Ka is unvoiced. Ka. So,
ka. Okay.
Yeah.
Ka.
So the affricate, you're starting from that stopped position and you're releasing in your fricative position.
I thought for some reason I thought you said fricative. Okay, sorry.
Okay.
So try to make the affricate sound.
Unvoiced velar affricate.
Okay.
Yeah.
That
is a good attempt.
Okay.
Let's so.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then a voiced velar affricate would be g.
G.
So, and then we can do the same thing for the palatals, and you could also do the same thing for the uvulars if you really wanted to. I have noticed, uvular affricates are pretty uncommon. Velar affricates in systems that tend to have a lot of affricates tend to exist. And for languages that distinguish between velar and palatal sounds, if they have velar affricates, they may have palatal affricates or vice versa. But it's very common for a sound like k to be merged with a sound like k, right? Like they sound really similar. So we can go boop, and then
oh, we're fine.
Oh, we're fine.
My husband wanted to let me know that they have switched the battery thing to full backup mode. Apparently we're in a tornado watch effect, but it's fine.
Oh, okay. Well,
we're fine.
You deal with tornadoes all the time?
No. But we get the fake watches all the time, but they never like we're not in like a real tornado area. It's like occasionally you'll get like a little like, oh, I got a little seal, and then it's gone. Yeah.
Usually, I think like the standard IPA thing doesn't really go into all these little differences because some of them are not. Oops. Undo? Can we not undo?
Oh, that's a weird one. What sound does that make?
I have no idea. I don't know what two squiggles makes.
That can be the weird like lip trill thing in the front.
That's true. We can add that to the front.
Yeah.
Speaking of trills, let's do that. Let's do trills.
Oh boy.
Which are my least favorite thing.
Yeah, I'm really bad at them unless they're up here.
Unless they're up there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, luckily for you, that is where the trills start. I'm just gonna look. Unvoiced velar affricate. Yeah. What are we looking at? Oh, this is a good question. Ross, would x be legal similar to the English X? Yes. So there, when we talk about affricates, the most common affricates tend to be I believe they're called, the most common affricates are homo-organic. And a organic being a homo-organic affricate is an affricate that is like the ones that we see here, produced in the same or similar place of articulation.
Okay.
So I'm just going to move some stuff out of the way. So ts and z are homoorganic. Ch and j are homoorganic. And then k and g are homoorganic. An example of a heteroorganic would be something like x, or no. So t and x are considered heteroorganic. These do occur in some languages. There are some indigenous languages in North America that have x, and I have seen languages that do t. Usually, yeah, I'm not going to get into that right now, but like, so these can happen. These heteroorganic affricates can happen. They are less common than the homoorganic affricates.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they are less common. So who has x? I think it's Blackfoot has x. I think there are some languages in parts of Africa that do psh and bj. So they start with the bilabial stop and they end with the postalveolar fricative. I think ps and bz are also attested. And I think tf and dv are also. So starting with the unvoiced alveolar stop and ending with the unvoiced labiodental fricatives. So like tf and dv. And I know 100% that Navajo has t. So starting with the alveolar stop and ending with the velar fricative. Yeah, so but that's a very good question. And what tends to happen in these sorts of situations, like, if you imagine there is a word like, what is it? If you imagine there was a word like caisson, and maybe the stress is on the second syllable, so it's like caisson, and this would eventually erode and go away. So then you'd have xon. What would happen in this situation in most languages over time is that xon would either become xon or it would become khan. So but in order to keep something like xon, you would need there to be a pretty frequent distinction, so that like you'd have to distinguish between these three words essentially. You'd have to, if your language wants to keep something like xon, you would have to maintain a kind of distinction where xon and khan are needing to be separate. That is one reason why you would want to develop. The other reason why it could develop is that your sound system does not have velar fricatives or glottal fricatives. So instead of becoming something like khan, you would have it decide to be tsan instead, but you may also have tsan. So like there are sort of these logics in language and sound change within the kind of mechanics of the sound system itself that lends it towards um,
Mm.
becoming homoorganic. And there have to be some pretty interesting circumstances to produce stable heterogenic fricatives.
Hmm.
But homoorganic fricatives are by and far much more common and among attested contemporary and historical languages.
Mm.
But I mean, what I will also say is that when people talk about something being common today, like we can say that uh, the unvoiced dental fricative is an uncommon sound based on languages that exist today that we know about. However, we can't say that about periods of time we have not studied.
Mm.
So, maybe in the Neolithic, everybody was using th and the, and it was like one of the most common sounds. We can't say. Um, so when we're talking about what sound systems and what sounds are common, we're talking specifically about like the modern and particularly late modern period, largely the contemporary period, because we only started doing this in the late 19th century. Um, So, and we do know that there was a wide variety of languages that existed, say, in Europe before Indo European expanded in there. We cannot look at all of the indigenous languages in the Americas that have gone extinct due to settler colonialism.
Mm.
We can't look at all the languages in other parts of the world that have gone extinct due to settler colonialism. There's also in your videos about imperialism,
Mm.
when a country decides that they are going to become a nation state, they teach everybody the same language. Uh,
Mm. Mm.
and the
Yeah.
imposition of one language on a group of people can cause language loss and can also cause languages to become more similar to the hegemonic language or the imperial
Mm.
language. Um,
That makes sense.
so like we can lose a lot of variation in sound based on some of these processes and you know, English and French and Spanish and Mandarin and Russian and uh, you know these are kind of the large ones off the top of my head that have um, been kind of at the core of some of these uh, long held sort of like imperial or colonial movements in like the early and late modern period have had large impacts on the speech communities that they move into. Uh,
Mm.
and sometimes, we show up in a place, we being like linguists or social scientists or whatever, and encounter a language after those impacts have already settled. Uh,
Mm.
so like I am, I do think that there are some things that we can say that are pretty consistent and that are too common to ignore. Languages will probably have, bilabial sounds and alveolar sounds. They'll probably have nasal stops and fricatives. Um,
Mm.
but you know, uh, the actual breadth of um, what is possible for natural languages is not known to us, sheerly from the small window of existing languages that we've looked at.
Yeah.
Oh no, so many comments. What if the colonial language is creating a new language area? Yeah, that is essentially what happens. We have these huge language areas. And Eric's kind of like when France, when all the dialects were, yeah, that is a big thing too. I think was it? There's a Benedict Anderson's Imagine Communities. Really focuses on like French, France, and Germany and Italian and Italy in that
Mm.
process. Um, um, And yeah, colonial languages do create new language areas. I mean, that is one way that language spread can happen. It is through, colonialism and imperialism and things. But now, the English language area is spans much of the globe, right?
Yeah.
Yes, that is also true, Jake. Yes, that is quite true. There are, where are we now? Yes, now we're on to trills.
Trills. Okay.
Trills.
Oh
Which
God.
you're really excited for. Oh, and how much more time do we have, by the way?
I mean, these are kind of all just like they go until I'm like, okay. Like there's somewhere normally in the like 2.5, 3, 2. I mean, I have done these streams until like, well, you don't know what any of those times mean. Sorry. Hold on. You're in a different time zone than me, so saying the end times is not useful.
Well, saying the length
Anywhere,
of time.
yeah, 2.5. I've done anywhere from like 2 to 4 hours.
Okay, so I think we can like kind of just go through the consonants. The rest of the little, I think there's there's a few more lines of consonants to go through, and then we could do vowels another time.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Minor imperialism tangent before trills, yes.
yes. And we can also then very quickly talk about taps and flaps as well.
Okay, I'm here for it. This is actually surprisingly very fun.
Oh, I think it's fun.
Yeah.
Let's add in. Let's kind of add it. I think we have approximants. We're going to talk about. Yeah, there's okay. Approximants. And then there's the and then there's the So this isn't as imposing as it looks. Some of these only have like a few sounds in them that we're going to look at, and it's going to go a lot quicker now that we have all of these inventories. I think the standard IPA doesn't include affricates.
Okay.
Which is a choice.
Where did I put it?
So trills. Okay. Trills are what happens when your articulator is rapidly obstructing and unobstructing
right.
The airflow. So your active articulator and your passive articulator are coming into contact repeatedly. You can think of it as they are clapping. Right?
Yeah.
But clapping in the way that the late queen clapped, where she has one hand holding still and the other hand is kind of tapping against it. Because your passive articulator is not moving, but your active articulator is moving. I think one of the big ones is the alveolar trill. And then there's only 3 trills that we're going to really talk about. I don't know whether we're just going to jump around or whether we're going to do it in order. Let's do it in order for some consistency. There's the bilabial trill. The bilabial trill is made by your lower lip and upper lip obstructing and unobstructing the air. That is the bra sound.
Bra.
There we go. Excellent. First try.
Okay. Cool.
Personally, that one is one of my least favorite sounds to make, and it took me a long time to actually get it. Everyone has the sounds that they struggle with the most. I really like velar sounds. I really like retroflex sounds. I think they're very sonorous. I think they're wonderful. But like bilabial sounds to me are probably the worst sounds. V I like. I like V. Yeah. I think V is the only labial or labiodental sound that I prefer. Anything else involving the lips for these sounds, I don't want anything to do with. Yeah, I can't wait. Can't wait to see what the So yeah, we got down. What's another trill that you know about? Which sound was that? Sorry, I didn't see your face when you made that
Oh,
sound. Yeah.
like
Yes.
R1.
Yes. And where did you make that sound?
The ridge thing.
The alveolar ridge.
Ah,
You are right on. You can have your M&Ms.
yeah.
And
Ooh,
confusingly, the symbol used for that is the R.
yeah. Okay.
So
Oh, we have a bib. Welcome, bib. Bib agrees
excellent
with you, apparently.
Streamers of taste. So the R sound. Now, something that can happen is there can be a distinction between voiced and unvoiced alveolar trills. So you can have
Okay.
R and R. Usually, though, these will be voiced. Yeah.
Okay.
R. They're more so ara and ara. They're more they make more of a distinction in the middle of a word or at the end of the word, like when a vowel is around them, you can tell. And but usually they will be voiced. The final one that we are going to talk about that appears in kind of the standard IPA is a pretty big jump for this, and it is the uvular trill.
Okay.
And that sounds somewhat like ra, ra, ra. Your tongue is essentially dribbling on the back of your mouth. Yeah, it is a difficult one to make.
Yeah.
Ra, ra, ra. But I would say that it is a difficult one to produce. And the thing is too is that oftentimes in languages that include the uvular trill, sometimes it appears as a uvular fricative, like which is what you were doing. Like it's some of the uvular sounds, especially the voiced uvulars, like the uvular sounds at the same places of articulation or similar forms of articulation tend to merge.
Right. Okay.
Because like the ability for people to distinguish between ka and ga and ha and ra and ra, like especially in speech, can become, and sometimes like the distinction is between the unvoiced fricative ha and then the voiced trill ra, right? Like it's like languages do things. Now that we've had our little trill time, there are also taps and flaps. Taps and flaps are when you are making a stream of air and then you are momentarily interjecting. So that is, we have, I think the most common one that we will see is also in the alveolar category. The alveolar category has a lot of sounds, and instead of saying ara, you would just essentially trill once. So ara.
Ada.
Yeah, and it sometimes sounds like a D. I think English has this sound. So when a lot of English speakers, particularly American or Canadian English speakers, say something like ladder, I say ladder. I say ladder. I use a D.
Ladder. Okay.
But a lot of people that is the alveolar tap or flap.
Wow, I already know it's half. Great.
You already know it.
Great.
You already know it. There is also a retroflex version of this. And we can drop that in. Does French have the uvular trill? French tends to use the voiced uvular fricative rather than the uvular trill. And Miles, yes, with it's also in ladder. Yeah. Yep. Showing off there. The other one I believe that is in the standard IPA is the I think it's the labiodental flap. So that would be
Huh?
like it's essentially doing V very quickly.
The
Yeah,
the
like
the the
ava. Yeah, ava.
aba aba.
Yeah. So
Okay.
it's. I mean, I can't remember offhand where I have seen it before, besides being in the IPA.
Mm-hmm.
I assume there is a whole group of linguists who find it very useful, but I am not one of those, social scientists.
Mm-hmm.
It also has a weird character where it's like a V, but it's waving. It's like saying "Hey." Um,
Oh,
I'm trying to
okay.
find it offhand, and it is not in my. That is incredibly annoying. All right,
Mm-hmm.
let's see if
And
we
if
can.
anyone's curious, I did steal this juice box from my children. So,
Excellent.
mm-hmm.
You know what? I will just quickly grab it online here. Labio dental flap. Silly sound. It's not a silly sound. I mean, there are sound systems that use this language, and it is an important sound for those systems. There. Wow, that's a big one.
It's very important.
It is very important. I believe
Much large.
parts of sub-Saharan Africa use it quite frequently,
Okay.
but that is outside of my you know outside of my zone. So
Mm-hmm.
that's why I haven't encountered it very much. All right, so we've got our trills and we got our flaps.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Very. We are now going to talk about approximants,
Okay.
and this is that semi-vowel space that we were
Okay.
talking about. Um, right? And we already
Mm.
have the ya there, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. So we have that ya there. And there are a few other places that we're going to look at it.
Mm.
Um, there is the labiodental approximant, which is just, it's not making a v, it's the,
Uh,
essentially. Like,
uh,
it is like doing the front of the, you're not even bringing your articulators together. So you're not bringing
okay.
your teeth to touch your lip. You're approaching, and then
Uh,
yeah, va,
uh, uh,
ava,
uh,
ava,
uh,
yeah, more or
okay.
less, yeah. And it has this. Oh, there we go. This hooked V, um, which I think I have used it in some of my conlangs before.
Okay.
Now, we also have an alveolar approximant. This symbol is a bit of a catch-all,
Okay.
and it's used to represent a wide variety of mouth placements. But this is the classic R sound.
Ah, like
Um, yeah. But when English
r.
makers make an R sound, they make a variety of different R's. So there's the
Yeah.
classic bunched R, like if you said um, run, in
Run.
some Englishes, your tongue kind of bunches up at the back of your mouth. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
when I say run, I actually make a retroflex. Like the, I make a bit of a retroflex approximate. The back of my tongue comes up to the front of my mouth. Um,
Mm.
so
Mm.
the
Okay.
bit of the way that you would want to make this though is in the same way where you would trill or flap. Um, uh, so when you're saying ladder, you would try to want to hold your tongue near there, but without getting any frication, without getting any of that turbulence. So, so if you have s, er, er, er,
Uh,
er,
uh,
right,
uh.
and sounds that, and when we produce sounds like that, we just call them rhotics.
Rhotics. Okay.
It doesn't matter where they're made. If they make an R-like sound, they're a rhotic.
Okay.
And like, we make R's in so many different ways in English, and no matter how you make it, or it doesn't matter how you make it, but like people make it in so many ways, and English speakers recognize that it's an R sound, even if
Mm.
it's made in a very different way, um, which I think is pretty cool.
Mm.
There's
Yeah.
also the retroflex approximate. So, if you have ja and then ra, like,
Uh,
ra, and it
uh,
is very similar to the trend we've established here. Boom.
hmm.
Is a little tail as well.
Okay.
Yeah. Did I put that in the right spot? Oh no, I didn't. Did I put that in the right spot? Yes, I did put that in the right spot. We have ya, as you know,
Mm. Yeah.
and then there is the velar approximate as well. And the velar approximate is when you are just, raising the back of your tongue to uh, the top of your mouth. And let me see very quickly. I know that this sound appears in Turkic languages. Um, so uh,
If M and H had an upside down baby,
if M and H had an upside down baby, we haven't revealed it yet.
Miles put it in the chat. He's a cheater.
Well, that's what it looks like. But it is more of a. Let me see if my suspicions are. Yeah, so oftentimes the thing is that the velar approximant is very similar to the velar fricative. So ran, but then you could also have something like ran, right? Like it's just a very subtle, like, and it's usually like the thing with approximants is that they're very close to vowels, and they are made similar or sometimes identical to the way vowels are made, but they are made in a position in a language that normally a consonant would occupy, is one way of thinking about it.
Okay.
So if you haven't, so, but yeah, so if you wanted to like have the g sound, g, but pull it away from the top of your mouth, just so that your tongue is curved back there, but you're not touching it. So, ra,
Aga.
yeah, ra, yeah,
Aga.
yeah. So you start with a vowel, you switch to the velar approximant, ra, and then you end with a vowel, ra.
Aga.
That is the way that it is easiest to kind of perceive it, because if it's at the beginning, it may sound like ga or ra, and at the end it could sound like ra, or it could sound like a vowel. Oftentimes it could sound like yeah, we haven't talked about vowels, but there's a very particular vowel that this sounds like.
Okay.
And there's an important kind of approximant that we have not touched on, and it is going to be, boop, boop, boop. I believe it is going to be our second last row, lateral approximants.
Okay.
I think I made a separate row for rhotics, but I just decided to combine it, and I think the standard IPA does that as well. So we when you think of lateral approximate, what sound do you think of?
Lateral? Like an L?
Like an L, 100% like an L.
Oh.
Boom. So when the L, the lateral, the L in this position, the lateral alveolar consonant is made, you can make it in a dental position, but in English it's commonly made in the alveolar position.
Okay.
So you're putting your tongue
Mm.
on your alveolar ridge, and you
Mm.
are actually
Mm.
passing air around it.
Yes.
L-
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is what distinguishes laterals from other
Oh.
sounds. You're pushing the
Okay.
air around your tongue rather than over it. So that is like
Mm.
a big difference there. Um, and so you can also change that articulation. So you could have it as a dental, so la, an alveolar, a la, and
La.
a post-alveolar, so sh, a la, right? Like,
La.
and we don't distinguish between these, right? Like they all just sound kind of similar to us, but some languages prefer the dental instead of the alveolar.
Mm. Mhm.
You can also use different parts of your tongue to make contact. So you can use the blade of your tongue, la, or you could use the top of your tongue, la. And that is going to change the sound as well. And the IPA has different symbols to kind of indicate those subtle changes, in case you're interested in it. But like, the L is just the base.
Okay.
There is also, are they going to talk about the retroflex one? Yeah, they talk about the retroflex one. Cool. The retroflex one as well. So, ta, ja, la, right? La. That's the
La.
retroflex
La.
lateral. So when you curl your tongue
La.
back,
Mm.
uh,
La.
yeah, that was good. And it has the
Give a
little
little kick
tail.
there.
It has a little
Yeah.
curl. It's a little fancy one.
Mm.
Uh, I don't like this symbol at all. There is
Mhm.
also a palatal lateral. So if you make a yeah sound, like in yes,
Mm. Yeah.
yeah, right? And then
Mm.
you make that lateral and you push the air around it.
E.
La. So
La.
yeah, yeah,
La.
yeah. And it is going to have a similar sound to that palatal N where you're like, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
You're going to
La.
have a little
Yeah.
bit of that
Yeah.
palatalization, and it's going to make the next vowel sound higher than it is. It's going to,
Mm.
yeah. And it
Okay.
has that. An upside down Y. Velar lateral. So, this is something we do encounter in English. Can you say the first word that I just wrote?
Look.
Right. Can you say the second word?
Mole.
Okay. When you say look, can you tell me where the L is?
On the ridge.
Yep. And when you say mole, can you tell me where the L is?
Same place.
Is it?
Mole.
Mole?
Mole. I guess when I'm pronouncing the first part of it, it starts further back.
It starts
And I
further
bring
back.
my tongue up at the end.
Okay, there we go.
Mole. Yeah, it's like here.
All right. How about this one?
Pill.
Mm-hmm. Is the tongue still further back?
I kind of do both.
Mm-hmm.
Because I
Okay.
always, yeah.
So, in English, we have something. We have a v. So our the at the ends of words, and sometimes in the middle of words,
Mm.
the lateral approximant can be velarized.
Mm.
And for some speakers, like me, it's just velar.
Oh.
So when I say mole, I'm not even touching the front
Like
of my mouth.
mole?
Yeah,
Mole?
yeah. And
Weird.
we don't distinguish it. It's not a difference that we make. It's all this. It's,
Oh.
both of those are the same to us.
Mole?
But
Okay.
we do in English have a kind of velarized lateral, and in some languages that is the lateral. They just have a velar lateral approximant.
That
And
blows my mind a little bit.
yeah, and you can also have a uvular lateral as well. But I mean, you would never really distinguish between a velar and uvular lateral, really. But the character for it is also pretty great. Little Big L.
Little Big L.
Little Big L. And
I
this
like
leads
it.
us, we're going to combine these together.
Okay.
And we're going to talk about the lateral. Well, no, we're not. Lateral fricatives.
Okay.
This is the last sort of set here. And this is lateral fricatives can appear around the world, and they are lateralized versions of post-alveolars. And we can think of it as making that L sound, la. We can try the voice one first. So, la, right? But you
La.
are going to be voicing. And it's already voiced. It's already voiced. The la sound is already voiced.
La.
You're just going to add some turbulence to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is not in the IPA.
Maybe it should be.
Maybe it should be. That's a very good point. So
yeah.
yeah. So if you want to keep the L,
yeah.
la, and then you want to have the, let me see, ja. You want to keep most of the fricative stuff, I would say, at the side.
Yeah.
La.
La.
What's Theodore? I put one of these in my conlang, spent more time struggling to pronounce it than actually working on the language. Yes. So it is very difficult. So the unvoiced one can sound sha, sha, sha.
Yeah.
It's like adding I don't know. Add your, instead of the so when you say ship, what, so shh, right. So switch to saying lip, and now try to whisper the L.
Ship.
That's getting there.
Okay.
Ship. Yes. Cool.
Ship.
Now voice that. Yep.
Ship.
You're getting there. That's quite good for like your kind of first encounter with it.
Oh gosh.
Yep.
Ship.
Yeah. So sha
Ship
and za.
Ship. Ship. I'm turning it into a Z.
That's not. That's totally understandable. And the thing with the lateral fricatives is that they have a couple ways that they can be pronounced based on the tongue position and also based on how they fit in the language. So sometimes you may have an unvoiced lateral approximate and a voiced lateral approximate. So you could have a la and sa. Sometimes you'll have just a straight up lateral fricative, sha, and you'll have a lateral approximate, la. Sometimes you'll have all three, sha, ja, la. But like, it depends on the specific sound system of the language. But it, can be something that can add, some flair to the language and make it a little unique. I particularly like the voiced lateral fricative. I think that's a fun one.
Yeah.
And in some languages, they may have these lateral fricatives, but not have the post-alveolar fricatives. Languages
Okay.
have both of them, right? But that is essentially the whole. That is the important part of the standard IPA for pulmonic consonants. And what pulmonic consonants are consonants that are made by air passing through your vocal cords and out of your oral and sometimes nasal cavity. Like it's just moving out in that way. There are other kinds of consonants, which the chat mentioned.
Yeah.
And that does include, and I'm just going to mention them because they're fun, but we're not going to get into them. That includes clicks. So like Osa, for example, is a language in Southern Africa, and it has a variety of clicks. And the creation of a click is not the same as the creation of a k sound. There's different mechanics for the airstream that's happening there.
Okay.
There are also adjectives, and adjectives, we can see them in languages in the Caucasus, but they're also common among languages in North America and the Pacific Northwest. In Canada, there's a particular nation known as the Wet'suwet'en, and in their name, the wet there, that sound, it's written. Let's go. Whoop. I think it's whoop. Wet. It's written, I think, as an English speaker, you would probably see that and say Wet'suwet'en.
Yeah.
But that indicates that it is an adjective. So instead of your airstream going through being pulmonic, it is an adjective. So you can think of it as like, some people describe it as like spitting the consonant. It is like, it's essentially beatboxing, right? Like dun dun. That is the kind of thing that you're doing. So that is one thing. If you hear British people speaking then you can hear them say the way that they pronounce the K at the end of words, like quick, they may say quick.
Oh, yeah.
Like they may go like that, quick.
Yeah.
That is a velar adjective. So, they may have, so these, and when you're like, yeah, so like we do have adjectives in English, but they are not a sound that we distinguish. They are just a version of K in a specific circumstance. There's another group of consonants that are called implosives, and they are essentially, it sounds like you're gargling.
Okay.
Like, so the velar adjective is the velar implosive is.
Oh, my first thought was that you were like a plosive, like sucking in instead of out.
It is. You are.
Oh, it is?
You are creating an implosive airstream. You're bringing the air into your mouth. And that is there are a lot of sub-Saharan African languages that have those sounds, those implosive sounds. And the distinction between, the what really differentiates the pulmonic consonants, which are the ones that we looked at. Boom. And these other consonants is changes to the airstream that are happening in the glottis. So when you close your glottis and you suck air into your mouth to go to make that implosive velar sound, like you're changing the mechanics of the airstream through how you're changing your glottis, and that is what's happening. Like how you're controlling your glottis affects things like clicks and ejectives as well. So now, when you're, I think the last thing that we're going to do is
yeah.
let's look at this.
Yeah.
So, looking here, you have taken the features of a phonological inventory, and you have the places and the manners of articulation here.
Yes. Just Miles, let's forget this. If you're talking about this, this is my fake sound chart that I made for for my spell language is what I was using.
Yeah.
This is not something Ross made. Just if you're like throwing shade at him, this is throw shade at me for this. So carry forth.
I don't think there's any shade that needs to be thrown, because I think this has clearly identified more or less the different places of articulation that you use and the different manners of articulation that you're using. I think we can spot some mistakes.
I'm sure.
Yeah, well, I mean, but we can look at it and we can compare the two. So we can look at your bilabials, nasal, M. Perfect. The W being there, I assume you mean the labiovelar approximant, the W sound we make.
Yeah.
And that can be placed either in the bilabial section or in the velar section. So that's fine. That's, that is also a check mark. So you've got 2 check marks so far.
Cool.
Labiodental. The labiodental unvoiced and voiced fricative are already in there. And look up here. They're in the exact same spot on our chart we made. So you can have your other check mark. Dental. You have it in the right spot.
Okay.
Right? But you use the TH.
Yes.
And the issue with that is that we could have thin and the. Thin makes the unvoiced sound, and the makes the voiced sound.
Right.
Right.
And the.
So the update to this would either replace the TH digraph you have here with both of the symbols, or you could just pick one. You could say in your spell language, there isn't th and the, there is only the or only th. And what I think is interesting is that you have, in the alveolar fricative category, you just have an S. And in the post-alveolar category, you just have the sh sound. So you could say that all of these are just unvoiced.
Oh, yeah, that would make sense.
So that is one solution here, because you don't have the voiced alveolar fricative. And I think that is interesting. In speech, so if you had a word that was, I don't know, ASA, would it be pronounced asa or would it be pronounced aza?
The first one.
The first one.
Is how I've been doing it in here.
Yeah. So I think it would make sense if you had a TH, it would be atha. Right?
I think that makes sense for how I've been pronouncing it too. Because like when obviously I haven't pronounced words in this stuff too much in the streams, but like when I was reading out everything for the relay, which obviously we won't talk about and you'll see that later, I feel like the unvoiced one was definitely how I was usually pronouncing it. Like because it like seem to fit with the sounds, I guess.
Mm-hmm. So now for your inventory here, you can use the unvoiced symbol here, the theta.
Oh my god. I don't know why this freaks me out, but this freaks me out. Okay.
No, I mean, I think you did a really good job. Looking at the
Okay.
alveolars now, the
Mm-hmm.
plosives, ta and da,
Mm-hmm.
na, sa, all of those are in the right place.
Mm-hmm.
Approximant, you have the lateral approximant in the right place.
Mm-hmm.
However, the symbol you used for that would be a trill,
Right.
which certainly sounds magical. Don't get me wrong.
Definitely not what I there are definitely no trills.
But then you can decide whether or not you want it to be like an approximate, like ra,
Mm-hmm.
or you can decide whether you want it to be a tap. So you can have ara or ara.
Okay.
One
This
of those
definitely was the first one that I was pronouncing it as.
ara.
Yeah, your basic
Yeah.
bitch English R.
Hey, that can be magical. I'm not
Yeah.
judging.
Yeah.
So for that one, then you would use the upside down R.
Okay.
Right. And you can keep your lateral and your rhotic and other approximates all in the same line. People do that all
Yeah.
the time for phonological inventories.
Yeah. And it
Uh,
made it easier from a coding perspective too.
Yeah, 100%. Looking at your post-alveolar category now.
Okay.
So, we now know that the unvoiced post-alveolar fricative is a sh,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that would
Mm-hmm.
be this little one here.
This guy. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, the squiggle. And then the ch and j sounds
Mm.
would be these ones.
Okay.
Yeah. And you could just throw them in there. And they are affricates. You have affricate there. Did you know what it meant when you put affricate there?
I don't know, maybe.
Maybe. Okay. But now you know.
Yeah. When I
Yeah.
was doing these originally, it was I was watching one of the videos. I think it was one of David Peterson's videos where he was talking about like when you're picking like trying to like grab like clusters and you get rid of like groupings together and you try not to leave like isolated things. And I think that's why I initially did this, was that I could try and pick sounds together that like made sense together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it certainly does make sense together. I think this is, I do think, I mean, I saw this like 5 minutes before
Yeah.
we started, and I think this is like, I think this is a solid sound, like consonant inventory. I will say it's a little on the smaller side if we're thinking about the body of languages that we have, and if we go through and we compare how many consonants are in languages, this is on the smaller side of average. But I think it has all of the things that I would expect to see in a language. Like you have bilabial, you have nasals, you have a larger alveolar set. That is common. I do see things that are like particularly Englishy, like the th, sa, sh, like that just strikes me as very, very English. But you've also made some interesting choices of like taking out pun ba, no za, like getting rid of some voicing distinctions, especially like with you have k but no g, right? Like that's interesting. Like I do think like this is a good, like a good early like inventory.
Yeah, and I definitely like when you think about like the goals that I had here in
Mhm,
mind, where I was I'm not going to have like a ton of things in this language present, right? Because it's just going to be the spells. So I
mhm,
wanted to have a smaller inventory so it would seem distinct and you would pick up on the vibes with a
mhm.
smaller like word set in there.
Yeah.
And also, I can't control how people pronounce any of this because it would just be in a book. So I was like, okay, how do I think people would most basic bitch pronounce things in English?
Well, that's the thing. Like when people who are making languages that they're going to have to pronounce to show to an audience that does not have, doesn't know how to read the IPA, you're going to have to come up with a romanization, and you're going to have to think about what sounds your audience is going to be able to pronounce and recognize and understand. And I think you have achieved that there. Let's look at some of these.
Okay.
Oh my God. Read her, Ross. What? Ross is an amazing prof. Thank you.
Agreed.
Magical. Sometimes people write sound inventory with sound correspondences. Like, yes. So
I like that.
What
That's
Graydon
helpful.
is pointing out is that angled brackets are used in phonological inventories to indicate what the orthography is for it when it is different. Okay. So, for example, let's just very quickly, if I copy, paste, cool. Stops, plosives, fricatives, affricates. Going to get rid of all that. Delete those rows. Delete those rows. Don't need no glottals. That is also something that I like. No retroflex. Boop. Oh, that is a column I want to delete. And yeah, that's more or less what you're going to have here. No PB. Boop. 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 You put that there. Nothing. So what we would do,
keep the
is
theta.
Essentially that. Like, so you're not going to put a theta in your writing, right? You're not going to drop a theta in the middle of your, I think your, editor or whatever, or publisher would be like, no, like, what are you doing? So that would probably be it. And I usually would use, like, these brackets is what I would tend to use, but just using the other angled brackets is fine. So let's go through this here. So then the other thing you would do, following that logic, is you would have this space ch this j, and then you would do this, and then here you'd probably do that.
Okay. That, like, that I can read that.
Yeah,
because you have it right there.
And so, and what this does, and then you would also do this. And so what this does is, to people who understand what the IPA is communicating, right? Where your active and passive articulators are, where is your tongue touching, right? Broadly. And they know the manner, like how are these, articulators touching. They can produce these sounds and know how to produce them. So there's no ambiguity over what you're trying to communicate. But then for your audience, right? Like, you can say, okay, so when you write out a word, I'm going to make up a word. I don't expect you to drop words before you do your translation thing. But, if you write out, Shathana, someone would know how to do that. If you did this, I don't know why people would necessarily. Oh yeah, this is some languages, could you could do something like this. I'm gonna make up like one of those weird millennial names or Gen Z names. Okay. if someone decided to have a romanization like this,
Uh-huh.
I would look at that and I would immediately, just based on my prior knowledge of how things work, I would say that looks like Jazaniel.
Yeah, Jazaniel, that's how I'd pronounce it.
But then you could look at their inventory and you'd see like, oh, what? The voiced post-alveolar affricate is ZH, and
Mm.
their unvoiced dental fricative is Z. So then you could say, oh, it's Jathaniel, which
Oh my
isn't any
gosh.
better. I don't know. It
Yeah.
sounds like something someone would name their kid. I mean, it probably have more Y's in it, right?
Yeah.
Um, uh, but like you'd be able to figure it out if
Yeah.
you know how the IPA works and you have these correspondences. You don't necessarily have to include these correspondences in your chart. You could
Mm.
have a separate one that just lists all the consonants in order and then has their correspondences beside them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but this is also an option for in some circumstances. I could also see the utility of doing what you did here, but
Mm-hmm.
then just taking out these little I'm just had a brain fart. I can
Single
remember.
quotes?
Yeah, single quotes. I can remember, you know, all of this post-alveolar, uvular nonsense, but I can't remember the word for what like a period is. A hyphen or some shit. Like
Uh,
I forget all the time,
oh.
just basic words.
Oh, I mean, yes.
Yes.
I very much do that. The
Yeah.
fun ADHD brain, it's great.
Oh yeah.
Mm.
So I can see the use in that, especially if you are, I don't know, trying to communicate something very specific to a specific
Mm.
audience. Like I understand what you're doing here. Like when I look at the one that you made here, I
Okay.
do understand what is going on and what is being asked.
Mm.
My issue was, okay, so you've got the there. Do you include both voiced and unvoiced there? Is that what's going
Right.
on? Here, I could say this could be a trill. That could be what's trying to be communicated.
Yeah.
Or it could be the approximate, or it could be a tap.
Mm.
So it just kind of, and that's because of the ambiguity, right?
Mm.
The final thing I would look at here is including the velar approximate,
Yeah.
because you have it here, and I think it's fine to have a velar this an approximate around this
Mm.
location, but I think you don't mean the. I think you mean yeah,
Probably.
probably. So you could
Trying to
either
see if I
make a
used that. Yeah, I definitely mean yeah. Like,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay. So there are two options here.
Mm.
You could drop it in its own palatal category like this.
Mm. Mm.
Uh, some people also I have seen people also drop it here and just get rid of the palatal category.
Mm.
Oh,
Mm.
shit, not row. Column. There we go. I've also seen this.
Okay.
I think
Yeah,
that
that would be
is
easy.
reasonable because it kind of reflects. And then in this case, this is kind of like, kind of more. And this is where we start to switch from phonetics. Phonetics is the acoustics and like the production and the mechanics of the sounds. So we're looking specifically to describe how a particular sound is made. That's what the
Mm.
IPA is kind of for.
Okay.
Phonology, sound inventory, is for essentially carving up salient or meaningful distinctions in a
Mm.
language.
Right.
And I can demonstrate that distinction with a very quick thing here. So, um, uh, mm, So, yeah, we'll have that one last, actually. Okay. So, if you put your hand just flat in front of your mouth a little bit, and this may not be good for the audio, but
I'll do it way over here. Okay.
Okay. No, hold it in front of your mouth, like up down, like you're covering your face. Yeah, there, perfect. Now just put it further away from your mouth, just a little bit further away. Yeah, that's good. Now say the first word on that list.
Tap.
Tap. Okay. Now say the second word on that list.
Pat.
Pat. And then say the last word on the list.
Later.
Later. The T is in all of those words, but the way that it is articulated is different in each of those words. In the first one, when you hold your hand in front and you say tap,
tap,
can you feel like a puff of air on your hand?
Tap. Yeah.
Yeah. That is what's called aspiration.
Okay.
And in English, we have a distinction between aspirated, unvoiced consonants and voiced consonants among the stops.
Okay.
So when you say pat,
pat.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's less aspirated, right? At the end?
It is. So it is unaspirated at the end.
Yeah.
And when I say pat, normally, I don't even release it. So if you listen for a sec, pat, pat.
Yeah, yeah.
Pat. So that is an unreleased. So my mouth, like my tongue, goes to the position of the unvoiced alveolar stop, but it doesn't release. And that happens just in like normal conversation. I do that with all of my plosives at the end of words.
Okay.
And that is a common thing in standard Canadian and standard and variations of standard American English.
Okay.
But that's also, why it can be difficult for speakers of English as a second language, because it's like, T, and it's like if you said pat, people would kind of look at you funny. They'd be like, why are you aspirating your T? I mean, we don't know they're aspirating their T's intuitively, but like intuitively we would understand that as a strange thing. Same thing with later there. When I say later, I use a voiced alveolar stop, but a lot of people say later, and they use a flap or a tap.
Later.
Yeah. More of a tap. Yeah. So when we're talking about phonology, when we're talking about the sound system, we are when we're talking about our phonology or our sound systems, we are talking about the important distinctions that matter. Right? So there's a difference between pat and pad, right? And when I would say it, I would say pat, pad. But you'll notice I didn't release either of those. But they sound different.
Yeah.
And we recognize that difference.
Yeah.
That's what we're trying to describe with a phonological inventory.
Okay.
And so, the difference between pa, yeah. So if I wanted to write something using, the IPA to describe the phonemes or the sounds in English that we distinguish, I could write pat, right? Great. If I wanted to actually describe what's happening with the last within this word, we would have to add on some things. So we'd have our PAT, but then we'd want to describe aspiration.
Mm-hmm.
And to describe aspiration, we add a little h. That's probably, I can't see that very well.
Oh.
And to describe an unreleased stop, we include this little side eye. That's what I'm calling it. And oftentimes, I don't know, people also do this. So yeah, so that is how but these brackets, these slashes are communicating the phonemes. So they're communicating this information.
Right.
The angled brackets are trying to communicate the relevant sort of acoustic and mechanical information that is more narrow. Sometimes people call this broad and narrow transcription, but what we're
Okay.
really looking at is more of a we're looking at a phonetic transcription, and here we're looking at a phonological transcription.
Okay. Okay.
And like we can encounter English speakers, they can say pat and they can say pat, and they will both understand each other,
Mm-hmm.
given a certain degree of exposure that they have to one another within the kind of language continuum or within a cluster of closely related languages or dialects.
Mm-hmm.
But we're going to make all these different sounds underneath that. And yeah, and this is kind of what we went back to before. Like, this is how accents emerge, because you
Mm-hmm.
take your phonology and you try to stick it into another language's phonology.
Mm.
And even though both languages may have a T sound or an R sound, they may pronounce them very differently based on this chart.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So.
Oh, yeah, good point, Bivlia. I'll definitely do that. I'll include an update so we can go over it next time.
Yeah. Language table next time, do a proper spelling. Wow. Okay. Romanize the final coda glottal stop to T for this very reason of the unreasonableness. Yeah. Almost all. Whoa. Okay, I got to scroll up. People are talking about orthographies, theta in your orthography. Yes, we had that fun thing. Call it palatal. You could also call it palatal. Yeah. So this category here,
Okay.
if you include them all together, you could call them palatal as well. I have seen that too. But what you're linking together is how the sound system interprets those sounds. I think in English, when we put sounds at a deeper level of the language, when we're talking about like the phonotactics, which is how sounds touch each other, like what sounds can appear next to each other, what are the rules around that.
Yeah.
I do think that we treat the y sound closer to a sh than a k.
Yeah.
So
Trying to
they're
figure out how
closer
I
to the post
coded that.
alveolar. Yeah, so that's the those are some, like, you could also, like, I don't know, just get rid of your dental category. Oh, not I love deleting rows. I'm not very good at deleting columns. I mean, you could just do this if you wanted.
Okay. Yeah, and with the way my code works, the
Like,
categories on the left, so like our rows, the plosive, nasal, fricative, affricate, approximates, those all are coded differently in the rules,
mhm.
but which column they're in doesn't matter anywhere for my code for how it will like build syllables and stuff. There aren't any rules based off that.
Yeah. So depending on how your language works, you could break it all the way down to this.
We're so
Uh,
little and tiny.
yeah, like you could say, okay, well, all of these are alveolar, like, all of these are articulated with the tongue at the front of the mouth. You could call these even coronal consonants,
Coronal.
because they have the crown of the mouth. Then you could refer to this as the palatal or category, and then this could be the velar or back category. But the finer points of organizing a phonology would come into things like phonotactics. So
Mm-hmm.
in your language, if you could have a word like crepe,
Mm-hmm. Which you
um,
can't. But
you
yes.
can't, but let's
No.
stay with me. And you could have a word like trape,
Mm-hmm.
but you cannot have uh, a word like trape. I would argue that you would want to have a separate affricate category.
Okay.
If your affricates appear in the same situations that your plosives appear in, you
Mm,
could just call them all stops. Like
right.
there's because they're doing like when you're talking about your phonology, you're talking about the system of sounds. You're
Right.
talking about how these sounds interact and relate with one another and how they kind of carve up the sound space.
Yeah.
Um, and so I would argue it is more important to um, demonstrate with a phonology how the sounds are related to one another
Mm-hmm.
more so than trying to stick to this chart.
Okay. That makes sense.
Like, and this people can use this chart. They can just like, cut bits out of the chart and just have like a chart that has a lot of empty space.
Mm,
That is totally reasonable. Um, it's just, different preferences. And a lot of this is going to be preference and taste, especially
yeah.
because, we're not peer reviewing our languages. Like, there are conlanging journals and things, but like,
Yeah.
that's not what most people are doing.
Right. So in
Um,
this case, I probably would keep TD and K as separate plosives because I have special rules for that category. So it would probably make sense
yes,
to keep those distinguished.
100%.
Okay.
That's the kind of
Yeah, because
thing you
they
want to.
can't start or end a word.
Oh, but cha or ja can start or end a word.
Yeah.
Ah, yes, that is what you want to be thinking about. That
Haha. Okay. Okay.
that is that is why you would separate it.
Okay.
That is why you would do this.
Okay.
Yeah, 100%. That is why you would do that. And so and that's what you want to be thinking about, and that's what folks in the comments and stuff want to be thinking about too.
Okay.
Uh aspiration. Differences between aspiration is phonemic in Hindi. Yes, Graydon's pointing out. So, and this is what I mentioned as well about certain Chinese languages. So, in some languages, they can have a difference between t and t. So, the aspirated t and the
T.
unaspirated t.
T.
So,
Okay.
and English speakers aren't necessarily sensitive to this because we don't make those distinctions. But
Hmm.
but then there's also some languages that, I guess, aspirate the voiced consonants as well. So you have b and b or b,
Yeah.
right? And so yeah,
Yeah.
you have these different distinctions in different languages that they can um, figure out.
Okay.
Is that all that? Yeah, I guess that's all that. So that would be the like getting you up to speed
Yeah.
on. This is where the pinyin confusion. Yes, yeah, yeah. So bringing it
Mm-hmm.
back to the pinyin, um, the p, the letter p in
Yeah.
pinyin represents an aspirated p,
Mm.
and the b represents an unaspirated p.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Right. Um, and so yeah, so like and you know that is why we see some of these differences with romanizations,
Mm.
and why some of that can be confusing when you're watching K dramas and stuff like that. That is that's very funny, Biblaridian. I spent ages trying to explain to a Chinese friend that the T and D in English is different than the T and D in Mandarin, but she didn't believe me. Um, I can also see though is that like when I have taught this kind of thing to speakers who make the distinction between aspirated and unaspirated voiceless stops, and I'm trying to explain the difference to them between aspirated unvoiced stops and voiced stops. They also just don't like. There are a bunch of them who originally don't hear the difference because it's not a salient difference that they recognize based on their own linguistic experience. So, but there are languages that do have more distinctions, as we mentioned before. Like you can have a language that says duh, tuh, tuh. You can also have languages that around the Pacific Northwest that have a distinction between aspirated, unaspirated, and ejective. So tuh, tuh, tuh. And while it may not sound like much on its own, Wet'suwet'en, and Wet'suwet'en all do
Yeah.
have distinct sounds when you put them in an environment. Oh yeah, Jake, three-way distinction like in Thai. Yeah, three-way distinctions do help. Yeah, if speakers from a language recognize more distinctions in a particular place or manner of articulation, or with co-articulations, like adding things like aspiration and labialization, the difference between the keen and the queen, they are going to be able to figure out a different sound system more easily. But then you have things like English, where we have like 20 vowels.
Yeah.
And a lot of languages don't have that many vowels. The Germanic languages stand out in that way. And I think, if we wanted to do this again, then we would do vowels. That would be fun. I think vowels could demand a whole thing. But I don't think it would take as long because we've already built up the basis for understanding through going through the IPA.
Yeah. And then it would be a game of seeing how much I remember.
It would. Yeah. Vowels are a different beast. Vowels are also very vowels are fuzzier in a way because the vowels are produced like you have an unobstructed oral cavity, and you're kind of moving your tongue to different parts of your mouth to affect the flow of air, and then you are either rounding your lips or not. And different speakers, like what one languages accepts as being an I sound, to be like, in the IPA, when you see the letter I, let's go down here. When you see the letter I, this, it means E. So if you wanted to write the word me, like, not, Madeline is on a stream with me, you would write it like that.
Oh boy.
What speakers consider to be the E is going to be different in different languages. Like, is E, like all of those, like, passing through, move your tongue around the top front bit of your mouth, and you can try to feel out where it changes to different parts of the vowel space. Because some languages have a 3 vowel distinction. They will have we're kind of talking about vowels, but I mean, I don't really have anything else going on.
Yeah.
Boo.
I can't go too much longer.
No. We're not going to go too much longer.
Okay.
mean, we can talk about close open. We can talk about front back. We can talk about high low. I mean, I don't really. Kind of. So, a lot of vowel inventories. The most common vowel inventory. I got the columns that time. Very good. Is you have E, U, and then just one low vowel. Can we merge cells? So E is at the front of your mouth, at the top, and your mouth is closed when you make that sound. So if you say E, yeah, and then the ah sound there is open, so your mouth is going to be more open when you say it. It's also going to be lower in the mouth. So ah.
Okay.
You have ah, and then e, ah, e. And then in the back vowels are more likely to be rounded.
Okay.
This seems to be a sort of, a cross-linguistic heuristic rule of thumb. Like back vowels are more likely to be rounded. And if you have a back vowel, it is most likely to be oo, which is the U sound. So moo, right?
Moo.
Ooh. And when you say
Ooh.
ooh, you'll notice your mouth is going to be rounded, and it's going to be, kind of tightly rounded. And the back of your tongue is going to come up. Ooh.
I also think about that one because it like feels different.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Like E almost, it feels like more the back to me almost, like the way my tongue is shaped.
I think there's more when you say E, there's
E.
some vibration and air back there. But your
tongue, like the back of my tongue is very high up near the back of my.
Yes, but it's also the front of your tongue is at the front of your mouth too, right? E.
I suppose, yeah.
Yeah, but the ooh, the front of your tongue is lower. Ooh.
I don't know. Oh. It doesn't feel like the front of my tongue moves at all when I say it.
Oh, okay.
E, ooh, E, ooh, E. Like, it feels like just the back of my tongue comes up on E and then my, mouth rounds, my lips round. I don't know.
That's good. So, in some languages, you can have E, ooh, ah. You may have a situation where, ooh, if you have a word like, where's I keep missing my thing. Here we go. If you have a word that we can write now like this. So if you have a word like this, that would be coup, right? Coup. However, you could have a uvular before it. And in that case, the speakers may not say coup, they may say ko. So
okay.
That means the vowel space for the back vowel includes lower areas than that would otherwise appear. Same thing where if we have if you had key, for example, you may pronounce it as chi. I'm having a technical difficulty, but we'll probably no. Someone's ringing my doorbell. I'll be back in a sec. You can wrap up.
Okay. Oh yeah. Okay. Thank you, everybody, for coming to my preschool lesson. Yeah, no, this was definitely fun. I'll definitely talk to Ross about doing this again with getting into other things, more vowels, pronouncing more of the vowels. I definitely have a lot of vowel rules and limitations in the spell language that are a little bit interesting. Hookray, Miles? Excuse me. Oh, pink trombone. Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's definitely a lot. Like, I've watched some of the intro videos, and this was a lot more in depth. Like, this was fantastic. Like, Ross was great. When he, like, jokingly was like, "Oh, I could teach you in the stream," when we were joking about it, I was like, "Yes, let's do it." But yeah, I had fun. This was fun. I don't know how much of the specific pronunciations I'll remember, but, like, I feel like more of the rules I'm sort of starting to get a bit better. But yes, I think the next one of these streams I have scheduled right now is not this next Sunday because that's Father's Day, and the next Sunday I think I'm out of town. So I think it's not until the 29th. So I don't know if we'll be ready to dive back into the spell language, or if I'll see if Ross is available to do this again, or if we'll just do another one of these at some time. We need more example words for some of the cells in the table. Okay, yeah, that would be helpful. Yeah, that makes sense. The key is to remember the strange symbol. Yeah, that's what I got to do. I feel like I need to make myself a little cheat sheet at some point if I start using this, or figure out if I want to incorporate the characters into my code at some point. But yeah,
And
I
then
think that about.
I'm now back. Is my crisp audio back?
Yes.
Excellent. Yeah, and just to finish the thought there, so like you can have ku, but then maybe at the if a K is before an I, instead of being key, it could be key. Like it could be a more palatal or a more forward sound in the mouth. And if you have an E before the unvoiced alveolar stop, instead of T, the speakers could say te.
Okay.
Right? Like, because if there's no A sound, is A going to be associated more with E, or is it going to be associated more with ah?
Yeah.
And so when we talk about vowels, we can talk about the ways that, we can talk about the little vowel chart, which is also shaped kind of like a mouth. And talk about diphthongs and things, probably the relationship between the semi-vowels and vowels, because we talked about the approximates there. And then we'll kind of be at a more, and then you'll have kind of everything you'll need to do what you want to do and communicate it in the
that'll be
IPA.
great.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I definitely do have some fun vowel rules that we'll have to chat about next time, but yeah.
I'm excited for vowel rules. I did notice no H sound in isolation. See, that's because what was that? Because you don't have an H sound, but you don't have it. You're using the H as a part of a digraph to represent. Yeah, that's fun. I do have reminders for myself sometimes about decisions I've made with orthography, because each of the language groups I work on have their own orthographies, and sometimes they are counterintuitive and different from each other in fun ways.
Yeah.
There. Brilliant. All right. I'm just going to look at. Sorry, someone was trying to deliver a package to someone in the building, and they decided to ring my buzzer very loud and very long multiple times. What do we got? 5 vowels more common than 3. Yeah. I mean, depends on how we cut out what is a vowel, because we can talk about different vowel qualities, and how we count vowels in a language is an interesting conversation to have.
Add that for next time.
I used to use pink trombone. What is a pink trombone?
I was assuming it was some sort of like language learning app or something like that.
This made me realize that the IPA is more extensive than I imagined. Oh, that's wonderful. Greg, whoa, what a masterclass. Oh, thank you. I had an excellent student. This is very fun. It is very fun. That was fun and informative to watch. Thanks for doing it. Yeah, and I do think when learning the IPA, I mean, I know I have seen like at the beginning of every single like how to make a conlang series, they kind of run through the IPA. But they don't really, I think like for me in particular, learning the mechanics behind it, like why it functions and what it's representing is a very helpful thing. And some people can just sit there and like brute force learn how to make sounds. I know there are some students, some of my peers, and some of the students who I've taught who have done those things where they just sit there and they like practice making sounds over and over and over again. I do that when I conlang, like in order to like articulate certain sounds that aren't common to me. I have to practice them pretty consistently. And when I'm learning other languages too, I had to practice sounds that we don't make very often. But it does help to like have that interaction and be able to hear and see what is happening when the sound's being made. Example words. Yeah, you mentioned that. I heard key examples to remember the strange symbols. Yes, remembering the strange symbols. But the thing is, there aren't that many strange symbols, right? Like,
I suppose
most of them are just symbols that you would recognize. I think, or they're just little variations on things that we recognize.
Yeah, the variations will be the fun part.
Yeah. More interesting than I thought. Oh, thank you, Luna. Vowel combinations are cool. Czech makes a distinction between short and long vowels. Yeah, there are a lot of languages that make a distinction between short and long vowels, or more like peripheral and central vowels. English is a language that does this as well. Learning why first will always be a deeper understanding. Conlanger's curse is just randomly picking sounds. Yeah, or just picking English sounds and just running with it. But I think like sometimes it's just important to get started and get into it. Good advice is to avoid sounds you don't know how to produce in your conlang. But it's fun to use as a learning opportunity. Yeah, I don't think it's necessary to avoid sounds you don't know how to pronounce. I think it is really that opportunity. I think at the beginning of conlanging, I would encourage people to use fewer sounds to really like understand the other parts of a language and not focus as much on how many sounds they can cram into a language. And then you get people who see like, languages in the Caucasus, or they look at Germanic vowel inventories, and like soon enough they have like 60 consonants and 20 vowels, and it's like no. That's too much. And like I think small consonant inventories can be like pretty unique and interesting, but that requires flexing the phonotactics, like where sounds can appear in a syllable, looking at syllable structures, making all those rules like you mentioned, where t, d, and k cannot start a word. Like that kind of stuff I think is really, really compelling for early conlangs. Danish does have a lot of vowels though, Luna. You don't have to include every sound you like. Yes. And I think having a lot of discretion about which sounds you're going to include, because like I have a document that's a list of all of the languages that I'm working on or have made, and I include features in them. Like I have a list of features that I have in these languages, and that includes like sound system features and grammatical and features and those sorts of things. And I do that so I don't reproduce stuff I've already done. And I have a quick way to check that, because otherwise I'll make tons of languages that have, like adjectives and retroflex consonants and only has V and things like that, just things that I like to do. All right. I'm good.
Okay. I think we're at that then. Yeah. Thank you, Ross.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Madeline.
You're welcome.
Couldn't think of a better way to spend a Sunday.
Wonderful. I had fun. It was good. It was good. My husband will probably be excited for me to return to the land of the living, but as it is on Sundays. Right. Thank you, everybody. I feel like this was my best watch stream I've done, other than maybe during the mapathons, but like people were clearly very into it and very excited for this, so it'll be good.
Yeah. Excellent.
Okay. All right. Well, bye everybody. Happy
Bye.
Sunday. Have a good, rest of your weekend, whatever bits are left of it. Okay. I'm gonna click the goodbye button. Goodbye button. Where is it?